games. Luckily, she found someone who she clicked with and would keep her occupied for a while. As she typed, she heard another sound coming from the other side of her screen.
Okay, that's better.
It was a knocking sound, but she ignored it at first, thinking it was just house noises.
So what's up there, Pony? How is everyone doing?
Creaking in the floorboards. Awesome. She really wasn't a scared person.
I already got the TV up too long.
But as she sat there chatting,
hold on.
Continued to get louder until she realized that it was definitely coming from behind her closet door. Startled, Gianna told the stranger to hold on.
Even. Oh, what up, that's how you doing? So yeah, this is one of the games I never finished, and I plan on finishing all of them. This is never mind. Oh, God. Well, basically, yeah, this is one of the games I never finished, but they started.
She was thinking.
Oh no!
But opening the door was a different story.
Okay.
Standing there in the closet, she was shocked to find a man wearing a
Now, where do I gotta go? It's been a while since I've been on this.
From below his waist, he lifted his arm and held out a knife. Gianna started stammering.
This is where I left off on here. So, I'm bringing his behind.
Take anything you want, she exclaimed as she backed away from him and onto the bed. She was already telling herself she would never let her parents leave her home alone again. The man answered in a deep, raspy voice. Get back on there and turn on the camera. Switch from chat to chat, spreading my message. With that, the man held out a piece of paper. Gianna reached.
I guess this was PSP.
Afraid to grab it.
Okay.
He pushed the knife closer to her, and she clutched onto the paper before he got too close to her face. She climbed into bed and got in front of her laptop, unwrinkled the page, and read it to herself first. The person she was chatting with was typing to her in the background, but she didn't dare answer. She just glanced at the words on the paper, which said, I am being held captive by a man who will kill me if I don't tell you that I'm a terrible person. She paused with a gulp. He will pluck out my eyes. I have to tell you that I don't ever give anyone a chance.
No. Back that up.
Gianna looked up at the man's eyes in the mask.
Okay.
She couldn't see his face, but she could make out he was deranged. Just from the way he was staring at her while she was reading the paper.
Alright, please.
He held the knife steady behind her laptop, still pointing it directly at her
I ain't been on here in a while, okay? I ain't been on here in a while.
This was all crazy. Why did he want her to read this online? He growled for her to turn the camera on as she begged for her life. Finally, she did.
I've not been on here in a while, bro. What all these buttons do, bro?
The stranger she was speaking to was still on and wrote back to her, puzzled by her sudden appearance of tears in her eyes and looking scared.
What's it?
Gianna read the message. The stranger she was chatting to wrote back, is this some kind of sick joke?
I gotta get back used to this. I gotta get back used to this. Okay. I have not played this in a while. I gotta get back used to this. Okay.
Kept going to the next chat and the next. She was so scared, she found herself believing that she was a terrible person.
Do not miss L2.
She began to believe that she did hate men. Gianna cried out loud, reading the message again to the next chatter. The kid was wearing a mask. Are you throwing up the bullet? Didn't say anything before clicking off on her.
Of course not. I need the other dude.
Creepy guys with the masks online that she was told to worry about, and now here they were not even interested in trying to figure out how to help her. To them, she was now the creep.
Plus, I need the job to be off there. Alright, let go.
The next video chat popped up with a young girl, probably about Gianna's age. She thought to herself that this would be somebody who would stay, talking long enough to get help. Get creative with her to keep her on and save yourself, Gianna thought. Instead, after she read the letter again,
I don't want you to up top, I want you to pull it.
It turned out there were a few other people in the room with her, and they all were laughing as well. No one did anything to help her. The girl just said, bye, loser, and ended the video. The knife stayed hovering inches in front of Gianna's face. Gianna realized that if she could tilt the camera a tiny bit, she might be able to get the knife in the shot. The emotional torture was becoming too much. She needed to get somebody's attention. She needed to find a way to get someone to take her seriously. She pretended to adjust the laptop's position, pushing the screen back slightly. She could now see the tip of the knife glisten in the shot. She got to the next stranger, and this time it was an older guy with a friendly face. His smile turned quickly to horror before she even began reading the note. The sight of the knife hurt. Gianna read the note out loud, and the stranger engaged her, asking why someone believed that about her. She screamed and cried, hoping it would help.
That was a lot of ammo wasted.
I don't know. I don't know. The person with the knife started to get irritated. He wasn't happy that someone was speaking to her kindly and not humiliating her. He started shaking the knife at Gianna and demanding the guy tell her how horrible she was. He lost his cool, and that made him slip up. Before he knocked Gianna out with the lamp, she reached over and pulled off his ski mask while he shouted obscenities. It was the kid from physics.
A little closer.
And she blacked out. Gianna came to as paramedics were loading her on a stretcher. Her face was cold and wet, so she thought she must have been bleeding pretty bad.
Oh, so how's your day?
She could see that the guy from class was under arrest, glaring at her from the back of a police car. And now she remembered.
Of course I need him to climb up on it.
At homecoming, and she had said no. But only because she didn't go to those things, and it didn't have anything to do with him. Luckily, the stranger in the chat was somehow able to track her IP address, and the police hunter passed out with the assailant pacing outside the house, thinking he had killed her.
Come on, get your behind up there. This ain't gonna be yesterday.
And she also learned that things aren't always what
I
they
get like used to this.
Sometimes they're worse.
Okay. Focus.
This encounter takes place in May of 2000.
Come on.
Connor got his first.
It's still there.
Her name is Melanie. They had been dating for a few months and were at that point where they were always trying to find places to sneak away to for some privacy.
Jesus Christ.
Both of their parents were pretty strict.
You don't drop your behind. Come on, bro.
Were where and how they were spending
Put
their
this door
time
up in
together.
here.
So they had to get creative.
I didn't know
Connor
this.
eventually remembered that there was an old farm next to his aunt's house across town.
Is that extra ammo juice? Yes, it is.
As a kid, and knew that there was an empty barn on that property. He was pretty sure it was still not being used.
I don't think I need to save
One Friday night, the young couple went to check it out. They told their parents that they were going out to dinner.
Some way to free this fire.
Instead, they got takeout, and Connor drove them out.
I didn't even mesh. I just walked past
He
and all
walked
he
down the
said
street
was
and cut
that.
through her yard. Connor brought a lantern and a few blankets for a picnic, and was able to wrestle up a bottle of wine for them to share. His aunt lived on the edge of town, and her property and the farm next door were bordered by a decent-sized forest. They would have all the privacy they could handle.
Kind of chilly out here, ain't it? With no survivors.
Hey, your party sucks,
After a few tries, he was able to pry the door. He turned on the window and looked around. It was a little musty for sure, but at least it was dry. They found a spot in the far corner and set up the blankets in their bed. They were just finishing their meal when they heard a noise. It was just a faint scratch. They shouted, kind of looking around.
What is it,
I want to know who got in this man's car, though. That's what I want to know.
Rats in the barn, and that was what was probably making the noise.
Leave your room, then.
Hide wherever you can.
Oh, no. That's a bad
When
way.
they heard the sound of
Okay. Where did that noise?
outside.
Oh, my Lord.
Going to get my sister. Kenny, get over here.
Yeah, you need to come with us.
I ran out of medicine.
Connor got up the ladder and peeked between the
Starting to
gaps
feel
of the
awful.
sides. He didn't see anything in particular.
Yeah, them
so
steroids
he
will
had
do that to you, big fella.
Now, the third time the scratching came, it was right behind them and much louder.
He's
Melanie
gonna pay
screamed,
for it.
and this time she
Nobody
demanded.
touches my wheels.
How you know it's a
Connor
he?
wasn't ready to give up on the little barnyard date, though. He'd offered to go outside.
But how you know it's a he? It
used
could
the
be a
flashlight
she.
on his phone and opened the barn door just enough to slip in. He walked around the perimeter of the building, but didn't see anything. Everything
Your shotgun's in the car?
until
Really?
he took a look at the walls. There were huge scratch marks down the wood, especially in the corner where they had been sitting. The marks were deep and looked fresh.
You don't put that down.
They weren't sure what to do. They had a long walk out in the open before they made it to Connor's car, so they were definitely vulnerable if that's what they chose. Connor felt like they were relatively safe in the barn since he could latch the door.
Bump your car. What about this thing?
They were trying to rack their brains to figure out what could have made those marks. It was something bigger than a regular old house cat, that's for damn sure. They started to convince themselves, okay, this is most likely a stray dog. He smelled our dinner and was curious and hungry and he wanted some. But then they also remembered,
Good shotgun.
Indiana has...
Oh, heck no, buddy, running.
They waited a few minutes to see if they could hear the animal. They made a deal that if they didn't hear anything for 5 straight minutes, they would make a run. Right when they were about to...
All you had to say was that. That's all I needed to hear. Wasn't that normal she fried it?
They both screamed.
Then, okay, she fried that one. Okay.
And then, it's okay, I've got a crazier. It started to move.
Good, I needed that. Reload. Oh, we're reloaded. I don't want that clip. Best save the ammo then. Until I get that shotgun and some more bloody ammo. Is anybody here? Are you in the main?
My baby.
Why you leave your keys in the car though?
He crashed my baby. That bastard.
How you know it wasn't he though?
They were scared enough to call.
Oh!
Even if it meant getting grounded for something. They started going down the list of people they could call, and Melanie suggested rolling a rubber. He was pretty cool, and most likely would
Tase him real quick. Please
it
do.
just so happened that he was home from college. Melanie called, briefly explains the situation.
I'm not wasting no lead on you.
And asks him to bring a weapon.
Who wants smoke?
The good news is that he was on his way. The bad news is
How
that
much
he
serum
was
do I gotta
taking
get? Golly.
out of the farm. Connor and Melanie
Alright, I'm
decided
ready.
to climb up on the top of the built-in cabinet and stay really
So you got shotguns in the car. That's good to know.
There was a small peephole in the wall near them, and Connor pressed his eye to it, just watching for anything.
Oh, you good.
While
Never
up
mind.
on that cabinet, Connor was about 7 feet off the ground. So when an eyeball looked back in at him, he just about had a heart attack. He screamed. and
That's some good firewood right there.
almost falling off the cabinet. The
Oh, what's
eye
this?
had been reddish black, and
Chainsaw.
he freaked out, yelling incoherently at Melanie, who was huddled and crying in her hands. Connor grabbed her and pulled her to the other side of the barn, inside an old horse stall. He tried to explain to her what he had seen, but she couldn't understand. She
Look at this
looked half
chainsaw
like
real
she
quick.
didn't believe him and half petrified because of the look
I
on
need
his
to cut
face.
somebody. Wait, what was
Now they
that?
stood
A
in the
bad by
barn
something.
huddled together. There was a small gap between the
That I
doors on
did.
the outer wall there, too.
So what's
They
mistaken?
weren't getting near him, but Connor was keeping his eye on him. And sure enough, he soon saw a shape moving back,
Oh, right, the tree. Go back and cut the tree down.
confirming that it was the source
The
of
firewood
light
tree,
he
yeah.
had seen. And Connor could tell it was looking for them. Connor had no idea how this thing could be so tall. He had never even
That's a
seen
good
it.
chainsaw. One quick sweep and it's
Most
cut.
importantly, what
All
was
right.
up with that eye? That definitely wasn't a human eye. On the next pass, he
Can I
saw a
find some more
flash of
ammo
fire
or
and
no?
instantly knew he was right. This was not
I don't know which way to go, left or
Connor leaned
right. I
forward,
guess I can hit
despite
my behind
Melanie's trying
left.
to pull him back, and just then a hairy hand reached
Nope.
through the gap, curling its long claws around the wood, trying to rip
Aren't
it
you
off.
afraid?
They flew out of the
I wouldn't be in this situation.
Trying not to hike Melanie.
Why you
Luckily, just
calling-
then they heard Melanie's
why you
brother
calling her a wuss,
start
though?
calling for them. They ran towards the door and flung it open, knocking
What
him
up,
in.
cartoons?
He was holding a baseball bat.
Oh, hello,
Connor was about
Fudge
to tell him
Pops.
that freaking bat wasn't going to do anything to this monster when they heard the growling sound. There, by the barn, was their stalker. The tallest
Metal,
creature they'd ever seen,
Metro
standing on
818.
two legs.
I apologize if I
With a
said your name
dog-like
wrong.
face, sharp fangs,
Yeah, how
and
you doing?
red eyes. It was staring at them.
Whew,
slowly
okay,
looking back and forth
alright,
between
let's
the
get
three
to
of
it.
them, sizing them up. It looked so strong and muscular that Connor...
Let me find your chainsaw. I mean, your shotgun. You said it's in the car bed.
They
Let
were
me go over
sitting
here.
ducks if this thing decided to chase
Oh, yeah, that's what I need. I need that. I need that.
Suddenly, it took its attention
And I believe I got some shotgun
just
shells, but
one
I do remember last
It
time.
raised its head into the air and
I do got
slipped
some
in the
shotgun
direction of
shells.
the forest. At the same time, Melanie's brother smacked them both and yelled, "Run!" They sprinted for their cars without looking back.
father's
Melanie
shotgun.
left with her brother.
Oh, I ain't scared.
Faster than they ever driven anything. The next day, Melanie broke up with Connor. He tried to tell everyone where she came and what happened, but no one believed him. Melanie nor her brother would ever
Yeah, let me, nah. Jesus!
The girl down the street from Amy's apartment had a big Christmas party every year, right on Christmas Day. It was a way
I gotta
for
keep the
those
people
who
tapping that.
were home or alone
No problem.
to celebrate with people they knew and drank with often. Amy was part of this group since she had moved several states away from her family
So I
to
didn't have
start
no
a big
shopping
new
sales.
job with lots of opportunities.
So when I came down here,
In
Bucko,
fact, the job was so new that she couldn't afford the holiday flight home.
why did you leave your
She settled
keys
on
in
going
your
to the bar terminal
car?
instead, knowing that she'd be
That
around
made no
other people
sense.
that she knew and loved. On the morning of Christmas, she slept
Signed up
in a
for
bit.
5 shells. I
She
can't
worked
afford
extra
that.
late the night before to
No.
make sure her next 3 days off could be spent with both celebration and sleep.
Actually,
And then
let me
at
say
around
so
2 o'clock
much
in the
chainsaw
afternoon,
juice
she
real
got a
quick.
phone call from her friend Jen letting her know when she would be
That
showing
came
up
from
at
over
the bar.
there.
The two chatted a bit about neighborhood gossip and then about Jen bringing her new date.
Oh, what's wrong with the
Amy
door?
felt a little jealous not having a date for Christmas, but she was happy for Jen. Jen
Look,
had seen this guy a
look.
few times so far, and it
Gonna
was
find some
moving along
shotgun
pretty
shells or
fast.
something.
So much so that Christmas was the next big step for Jen. Amy held off on her jokes and her pouting and just smiled as Jen gloated. Amy would find Mr. Right eventually, she thought. After hanging up her phone, she went about her day, drinking some more coffee, doing more edits on her articles for work. She called her family on video call to say Merry Christmas to everyone. And while she was on the phone, her little sister grabbed the phone from her mother's hand.
Blocked off by what?
"Amy, who's the boyfriend?" she shouted into the phone. "What?" She asked what her sister meant by that. "I saw a guy walking behind you just now, and he looked at the camera. I saw
I
him."
don't know who you saw looking behind me.
Amy paused and slowly turned and looked behind her, but there was nobody there.
And you know what? I'm gonna save it.
"You must be seeing things because I am very single," Amy laughed. "But thanks for putting it out there into the universe."
I am
for
gonna
me,
save
honey."
that, yes, sir.
Amy was
O'Brien.
smiling, but her little sister was confused, and then the phone was taken back by her mother and the conversation wrapped up. Her little sister had freaked her out a bit, but
I
she was
suddenly
definitely
feel
seeing
really
things, Amy figured.
tired.
We
But
all
she still
do.
searched the apartment when she hung up the phone. She found nothing. No sign of a guy
Secure.
anywhere in the house, or any sort of break-in. At 9 o'clock, after 2 hours of shower, hair, and makeup, she threw on her red dress and a black faux fur coat.
Okay.
Heading out the
This is
door, she
good and
turned the
quiet.
knob,
Oh,
but
never
didn't
mind
need
about
to
that good and
unlock
quiet.
the deadbolt. That was weird. The front door had been open all day, she realized.
girl,
She
you
felt
talk
like
too
a-
much.
Good job protecting yourself.
Who is he
living alone,
dragging?
Amy.
No. Oh, he too big. Nah, he too big.
You don't need the money after your hard work.
Oh, he too big. Nah, I'm good.
Barr was walking distance.
I don't
which
know.
made getting home afterwards much safer than navigating trains at
Don't
2 in the
scream.
morning.
Don't scream.
She headed over to the bar and stopped outside for
Girl,
a
we don't.
cigarette before
Oh
she
no!
knew as they
Thank you.
arrived. She knew a lot of the patrons. And then soon from far off she could see Jen walking alone from the train
Keep
station.
her tased.
Oh,
Yes,
no,
sir.
she thought. Jen approached Amy with a sad face. "He isn't coming," she sighed, lighting her own cigarette.
I think I went the
Amy
wrong
could tell
way.
Jen wanted to cry, but wasn't letting herself.
That's the
She
way I
probably
came from,
didn't
so I
want to
supposed
mess
to
up
go.
her makeup.
So they really want me to go where this monster
Why?
went. Oh, that's
Amy
lovely.
asked.
That's adorable. That's
Apparently
so
he got
adorable.
called into work.
Yeah, okay.
He worked at a
Fork in the
hospital,
road.
but Jen didn't buy that. She thought his excuse didn't sound genuine
Yeah,
enough.
I'll go to the left.
She felt like he was getting cold feet about the relationship, but she didn't want to say all this to Jen.
It's over here.
Anyway, the guy's name was Christian, and he seemed nice enough. But maybe it was really too.
Oh, it's y'all little suckers?
holiday together, and he did have cold feet.
Get back somewhere,
Whatever the
please.
case, Amy
Nah.
wanted to make sure Jen had a good night, so they finished smoking and headed inside to the party.
I got scared
The bar
for a
was pretty
moment.
crowded,
Yes, sir.
considering it was Christmas Day. Apparently a lot of transplants lived in the area. The two women sat in the back in a booth and settled in for the evening. A few people made their way over for hugs, and one friend was giving
Go
out
this way?
candy.
No. Let it
Amy
go
and
over here.
Jen began to
Move,
work
please.
before we landed home.
Chainsaw, man.
Jen went up and opened a tab for them both as Amy played on her phone. Luckily, there were snacks at every table, aside from the candy, and the bar was also serving food.
So this was just a
It was
dead end.
not home cooking, but it was better than nothing. She waited for Jen to come back, a text of her screen.
Okay.
You look beautiful. They
Yeah,
read.
well, not.
She didn't know the
Wait,
number.
that sounded weird.
Her eyes shot up from the phone and she looked around the room. She texted back, "Who is this?" She saw all the people she knew locked in their own conversations.
That's
No
enough
one
for
was
that.
on
That's
the
enough
phone,
for
and no one stuck out as somebody strange or new. It really was a family affair.
So, 14-year-old, you know, I was supposed to
I was outside watching you, and I couldn't help but see you standing alone under the mistletoe.
Girl, you don't think I don't know that. I want to know why this stupid idiot left his car. I'm keying the car, though.
And then your friend showed up. The big
Girl, you don't think I don't hear you?
got mad again instantly.
Oh, don't come back.
Say those
Nah.
things. I was hoping.
Don't
she
tell me
would
I
give you a
responded,
little
bro.
kiss. Amy scoffed and felt nauseous.
Yeah, that's
and
right. Come down and
offended.
get this, too.
She was being watched, and to make it even worse, the guy
Sorry.
she knew.
It's not like I did it on purpose.
Put her phone face down on the table as another
Sorry.
text went off. She didn't want Jen to know about the stalker or the fact that whoever it was had terrible
Dust to
things
dust.
say. You look like you saw a ghost. Maybe the ghost of Christmas past. Jen giggled as she
I want to
placed
get back to
Amy's beer in front of her.
civilization.
I need another cigarette, Amy responded, aiming to find out if the stranger texting her was parked outside.
I want to get back to
Maybe she could
civilization.
find him and get the bartender to
Sure.
chase him off. All she knew for sure was how scary it was to get that strange text. She honestly felt violated even knowing this person had her number. Jen was puzzled, but
That must be the
offered to step
hospital.
outside
We're
with her.
certainly going to find some
Amy
help.
declined,
First,
trying
we
to
have
shield
the
Jen
LPA.
from the drama. I'll be back really fast.
Quiet.
Forgetting her phone, she headed out the door and began grilling all the cars on the street.
Good. That's good,
She
man.
didn't see anyone out there, and no one in a car. Amy didn't want to go too far from the
Looking
bar,
around,
and she
sticking out
forgot her
front.
coat
Why was
anyway,
you
but
looking
she wanted
up?
to make sure this threat was squashed, so she could
There's
just
something
enjoy
else.
her night.
A little late to think
After
about
walking
that
past the
now.
bar and a few storefronts, she found nothing.
I was stupid.
No one suspicious was around, and no eyes were poking up from any back seats that she could see. Shivering and cold, she decided to give up and go back inside to block the number. She would let the
Why
bartender
would you
know that
leave your
something
keys
strange
in the
was
car,
going
though?
on.
That don't make no sense
She
to
was
me.
still a few blocks away, but saw the bouncer now standing outside the bar, so that made her feel a little bit better on her return walk. Well, until he decided to step inside the bar right before she reached the door. Amy sighed, speeding up her stride.
Oh,
But before she could get to the bar, she heard footsteps coming up quickly behind her and a voice calling out her name. "Hey, Amy!" She turned around
What
without
up?
thinking,
Oh,
and
that's-
there was Christian,
you coming up or
Jen's
what?
boyfriend, in a Santa hat, holding a plank of wood. Before she could open her mouth to reply or say anything, she saw the plank of wood
Okay, I can't
rushing
get her
towards her
since you guys
head
got down there.
as Christian smacked her, and she fell to the ground. Amy was dragged across the street and into a building that was in the process of being renovated.
I don't like that scary music,
She was
Bucko.
tied up and gagged before she came
I don't like that scary music.
An
Chill.
hour later, Amy slowly opened her eyes and
Lovely.
looked around her. There were lights up,
What the?
and she had
Are you?
been placed
Can
under
you
a
shoot
tree
them?
with an animatronic
I know you got a taser on you.
on and on.
Why are you trying to keep with them with it?
Ho, ho, and Christmas
What you
lights.
trying to do? Oh no.
She was shivering from the
Get
cold
up, get up.
as the building had no windows. Standing over her now was Christian, with a strange smile
Oh
on
yeah,
his
you want to
face.
hit somebody, right? You want to hit somebody with them
All
pointy
I
feet.
wanted for Christmas was you. Ever since I met you with Jen that one time.
You ain't trying to
He
help
kept
me or
smiling
nothing.
as he
You
knelt
just.
down beside her.
Wow.
You're so strong and beautiful. He was caressing her face and playing with her hair. She tried to cower away from him, but it only made him
I
laugh.
guess I gotta go get her before I do
You
that.
will
I'm
have a
jumping her
chance to
down.
run later. I've been staying in this building since they stopped construction for the winter. Nice, right?
Even though she got a
He stood
taser,
back
she
up
been
and spread his
basically
arms,
watching
showing it
me.
off.
Okay.
Isn't it quaint?
I'm no scared
Come on,
behind
Blondie.
her.
What are you
Tears
waiting
were
for?
streaming down Amy's
Exactly.
face, and all she wanted to do was scream. Christian seemed to enjoy watching her get upset. He kept
And I'll
telling
leave you
her
behind
to
here
work
too.
herself
Are
up.
you coming or
He
what?
told her that he loved her and wanted to be with her. He admitted that he had been in her apartment to check and make sure that there were no other men in her life.
Come on,
And
Goldilocks.
that's when it dawned on
Work with
Amy
me.
that that's who her
You're a
sister
real
saw
sweetheart,
sneaking
aren't you?
around behind
I
her.
wonder what May sees in you.
Christian
I
untied her
wonder
legs
why
and
you
stood
didn't
her
do
up and left
nothing
her
when them
arms
things
bound
was
and a
coming
gag
at
in her
me.
mouth. I've been working on this
Nothing,
plan
you
for
catching
a
the base?
while, and you are the
Walkie-talkie?
perfect specimen. He spun her around to face the doorway into the next room.
Bet you do.
are
We all
going to
need help.
start in there,
Fine.
trying to escape
I know.
the building. I will give you
The
a
game
head
won't let me.
start.
I'm at the
I
hospital
can't
with Amy.
promise you that you'll make it out. And I will try not.
Cause you left the keys in it, stupid.
I'm sorry, honey.
Who
He
leaves
shoved her
keys in a
forward into the
Roman
next room and
vehicle?
plugged
I'm
in
running
another
one
set
for
of
that
Christmas
matter.
lights.
I'm gonna look
The
through
room was huge and filled with things she had to try to avoid, like spikes made from wooden planks and old mannequins. Amy pleaded for her life with her eyes, but Christian just kept laughing.
Don't worry.
Yo,
He turned from
blogger
her
ain't
and
no help.
disappeared into another room.
Seems peaceful.
She looked around for any way out, but realized her only choice was to go through whatever obstacle course he had set up. There was glass from broken Christmas lights and decor mixed in with dangerous weapons. And
We was going to the hospital and he,
were sticking out
wow,
from the
he could have
walls.
came with us.
He must have been floating this for a while, right under everybody's nose. Poor Jen. He wasn't a hospital worker. He was a headhunter. Amy had to get out and back across the street to the bar. That's all she could think about. She was afraid, though, that if she ran to the window to signal for help, she would be killed sooner. So she played along. She got through the first room slowly, given that she had had a head
Oh,
start.
you're getting the communication.
But that's when
Alright.
she heard a chainsaw revving behind her. The head start was over. She started running as her hands struggled behind her for any way to loosen her binding. In the next room, there was a broken
do
mirror with
they?
shards
You
of
got
it hanging
weapons or
from the
no?
ceiling. As she ran
Oh, I'm
past, she cut her
so
face,
sure.
but noticed that one of the shards had fallen to the ground and broke. She bent
Oh,
backwards,
never
reaching
mind.
for it as she listened to the
Still
chainsaw get closer and picked up the shard. She twisted it around and was able to use it to cut her binds while she moved through the rest of the room.
I'd rather have
Getting to the
this
doorway,
over
her
here,
hands
golf
were now
club than
free.
that bloody hockey
Christmas
stick.
carols were echoing through the room, and then she saw him, holding the chainsaw above his head and running straight at her, ignoring the mirror pieces slashing at his face.
We're close.
Amy kept
I'm
running
almost there.
through
We're
every
coming to get
painful
you.
obstacle, falling a few times. Her dress was now torn and there was blood all over her, but
They give me
now
a whole
she could
bunch of
scream for help.
saves, golly.
Out one of the open window holes, she could see the bouncer across the street talking to Jen and a police officer.
They give me a
talking
whole
about
bunch of
Amy and where
saves.
she had gone. Amy screamed out the window, and the screams bounced off the bar building and echoed through the street. The bouncer, the officers, and Jen all ran
plus I want
across
to-
the street towards the abandoned
what that
construction
was.
site. As they got closer, they heard the music, saw the lights, and heard the chainsaw over Amy's screams. Running in
Why
with
that
his gun
music
drawn,
popping?
the
Why that
police
music popping
officer
like
headed
that?
up the
I'm going for
stairs.
some ammo.
Amy was right there at the top and fell at his feet, crying. Christian wasn't far behind, but the officer immediately began shooting. The bouncer retrieved Amy, brought her back outside, draping
What
his coat
story?
around her. The officer called for an ambulance as Jen ran up to her. "Oh my God, Amy, what happened?" Amy just cried and placed her head on Jen's shoulder.
Can't she
Two
use it?
ambulances eventually pulled up. One to
Oh,
check out
I was
Amy,
just too.
and the other to
Okay.
take Christian
She
to the
was just in the
hospital,
way.
even though they all knew he would be pronounced dead. Jen found out that Christian was really a prison asylum escapee.
We're locked in.
As a child, his family tradition had been to go hunting on Christmas with his family. But as an adult, his sick mind had twisted that memory.
Probably should
and
have fixed this
started
before.
hunting people.
Anyway,
He was placed in a mental institution, prison, and forgotten about. But the fact that he had been forgotten about had allowed him to escape.
no, I was trash.
He
Literally.
had done this human hunting thing before and was wanted in several other states. But now he was dead.
Oh, we got a timer. I ain't know that.
Mom, we're on our way.
But the next thing to happen was the paramedics started running out of the building, looking around frantically. "He's gone!" one of the paramedics yelled. Sure enough, Christian was missing. The officer who shot him came out swearing that he had shot him 3 times. They closed off the area and more police officers showed up as they told Amy's ambulance to take off. Amy felt relieved to be on her way to the well-guarded hospital. The
I didn't know it was
paramedic
on
in
a
the
timer.
back of the ambulance with her was nice, cleaning her wounds and temporarily bandaging her to stop the bleeding.
Okay.
But then, only 5 minutes into the drive, the ambulance stopped.
I didn't know it was on a
She heard
timer.
the driver jump out of the
Okay.
front. Soon after, the doors to the back of the ambulance flew open.
I'll take
Amy
that.
and the paramedics swung around to look, and there stood Christian, laughing in his Christmas hat with his shirt unbuttoned showing his bulletproof vest. "I always catch what I'm hunting." He held up a knife and jumped into the ambulance, shutting the door behind them all. The ambulance was eventually found the next morning.
Oh, heck no, you got me messed up. Come here.
Busy mall parking lot filled with people returning gifts. When they opened the back doors of the ambulance, it was instantly clear that something horrible had happened.
Sorry.
The only body left behind was the paramedic, dead and wrapped.
No duh, Sherlock. Of course I know I got to find her. I know we was on a timer, golly.
Casey couldn't wait until she made it to her exit. She was cruising along the highway on her way home from college for Thanksgiving break.
Stuff. Oh, wait.
Playing with the knobs on the radio, she tried to keep her eyes on the road while tuning into local stations. She picked up a local news station just as they were about to announce a news bulletin. And then it started. There's a white male on the loose from the state prison. 6 feet tall, he has blue eyes and brown hair and a scrawny build.
Would you know how to
He's considered extremely dangerous and may be armed. He experiences delusions and may be talking loudly to himself. Keep your doors and windows locked. Local authorities are doing everything they can to find him
sister
before
is not
tomorrow.
going to die because of
Police will
some
not release his
stupid
name to keep panic to a minimum. Please call if you think you see him or see anything suspicious.
Thank God I gave him the gun. But bad though, because you got to waste all them good rounds.
What happened the week she was home. Signs, she noticed the sign for her exit coming up fast, and she didn't give it much more thought, figuring that these things always get announced, and then the perp is caught and nothing else ever comes of it. She veered into the right lane and then onto the off-ramp. She couldn't wait to get there and smell her mother's pies in the oven. Coming up to her house, she could see that all the lights in the kitchen and the living room were on, ready for her to arrive. Her parents were up cleaning and getting ready for the holiday as usual. She pulled into the driveway and ran up to the house, leaving her bags in the car. She knocked quickly as she opened the door and could hear her mom's excited reaction, followed by her mom's footsteps. They embraced as soon as they saw each other, and Casey's dad wasn't far behind. Another hug from him, and then he headed out to grab her bags for her. Casey walked through the living room and into the kitchen. Her mom picked up where she left off, getting ready. Casey talked about how good everything smelled and how school was going, how her new relationship was going. Her mom was responding and making jokes and passing the special dishes along for Casey to set them on the table. They talked for a while, and then Casey mentioned the news bulletin she heard in the car. Maybe her mother already heard it since her radio was playing Christmas carols. She went on about the bulletin but downplayed the threat. But the look on her mother's face was almost green, and her mom's smile disappeared totally. Casey turned her head to the side, confused by her mother's reaction. Mom? It's probably nothing, right? Casey, I heard it too, and I Googled that man. It wasn't too hard to find out more information. He's a serial killer and extremely ill. He's murdered whole families, torturing them first. They've been talking for at least 20 minutes at this point when her mother gulped and her voice was shaky.
I know. I just got in here.
Casey's eyes widened. She hadn't even realized that her dad never returned to the car. She didn't hear the door of her car open and close, let alone the front door open and close. Her mother gripped at her chest and turned to look into the living room. They could see the front door directly.
Move so I can go.
Open in the front window, but there was no light on in the driveway, meaning that there could no longer be anybody out there. The motion sensor would have kept that area lit if her father was still out at the car.
Oh, gotcha.
Oh, there has to be an explanation, Mom, Casey said calmly, trying to ease her mother's worry. What are the odds? She could see that what she said had no effect on her mother. 40 people, Casey. 40 people that they know of. Casey looked back towards the front of the house, and the windows were glass, and the front door still slightly open.
Put her down. Put her down. Put her down.
I'll get it. Casey slowly moved along the counter with her back against it. Her mother tensed up and protested quietly, but Casey motioned her hand for her mom to stop.
Gotta get this.
Her eyes were on the front door. She took them away for just a minute to pull a knife out from the knife block. Creaking along, she made it to the living room entrance and stopped for a minute to take a breath. The house was completely silent, but all the lights were on. It was eerie how such a comfortable place was suddenly feeling terrifying.
I'm
She leaned her
hurrying.
back
I'm
against the
hurrying.
frame of the entryway,
Golly.
and the trash can and the door to the garage were behind her in the kitchen. She looked back behind her again to check on her mom. Crying with her hands over her mouth, her mother could not control her
Oh
fear
my
at
God,
all.
he's still not out there.
Mom, it's probably nothing. As she said that, smoke began to rise from the oven and the room filled with the smell of burning pies. Before Casey could snap her mother out of it to manage the pie situation, a voice could be heard coming from behind the garage door. Casey turned her ear to the door, hoping she was just hearing
Wrong way.
things, but
What the?
the
Move.
muttering got louder. Damn kids! Damn smoke! Stupid
Oh, no, I
turkey.
went the right way. Right way.
She heard a bunch of random nonsense in a raspy voice and realized that the odds were not in their favor. The muttering was going in and out. Whoever it was
Maybe
must
old,
have
but
been
at least it
pacing
still
on the
works.
other side of the door. Her mother heard it too, completely ignoring the oven, and the room continued to fill with smoke.
I'm going to help you.
Damn people, don't they know how to cook? It smells terrible, terrible. I'm gonna kill them. I'm gonna skin them. Casey couldn't take it anymore. She jumped at the garage door, turned the knob, and as she opened it into the kitchen, she was shoved backwards as this deranged-looking man pushed the door open. He was holding a metal pipe and had an unstable look on his face. His orange prison jumpsuit had what looked like blood on it, but not a lot. Where was her father? Her mother let out a shriek as Casey fell to the floor onto her back and looked up
The
at the
door is
man.
powered. You can
She began
pass
to
through
crawl backwards on the floor, away from him, trying to get around the kitchen island and over to her mother. The man held the pipe over his
Jesus.
head. He slowly approached Casey, still muttering, but now the words came so fast that they were inaudible. His grin widened strangely. Before he could swing, the fire alarm went off and the loud noise of the alarm
I
started.
ain't scared,
for
beat
just a
it.
second.
Nah.
Just enough time for Casey's father to charge him from behind and hit him in the head with a shovel. Her mother snapped out of it, ran to the phone, and called.
Jesus.
Her father quickly swept her up off the floor and pulled her towards him. He was beat up pretty badly, but luckily the man had kept him alive, surely for whatever torture he had planned.
Oh, that's the wrong one.
Fortunately, her
Back to
father
left,
didn't stay down after being beaten and was able to stay conscious so he could get up and get back into the kitchen to save her. After calling 911, the three of them hurried out the front door, leaving the fire alarm beeping and the pie burning. Once out front, they waited for the police and watched as the man began to stir on the floor. The smoke was alerting him, and he began to sit up, choking on it.
Hold on.
And that's when the police sirens as
Oh!
the fire truck pulled up behind them, blaring their horns. 4 police officers ran past them into the house. 2 cuffed the man on the ground while the firefighters handled turning off the oven and removing the pie. More police officers pulled up to the house and parked on the sidewalk as neighbors began to come out of their houses to watch the scene unfold. They watched as the police dragged the killer to the police car, listening as he screamed and swore about Thanksgiving and wanting to kill anybody who was celebrating it. Casey's mother sobbed about the pie for an hour. Casey figured, though, that was just her way to release her emotions from the night. Her dad was taken to the hospital
Nope.
where they determined
Hold on.
nothing
Come
was
on.
broken,
Come on.
thank goodness, and he was just pretty beat up. They released him that night. Casey's parents moved out of the house shortly after and never had another successful Thanksgiving dinner. The holiday became a trigger that put them all on edge. Even Christmas was hard. They tried. The gathering was never the same. Till Aunt got to the one furthest in the back. He could see feet in the stall and definitely looked like James's shoes. He started to bang on the door,
Okay, I came
asking
in
him
that
to come out for New Year's Eve. There was no response, which was a weird thing for his loud friend. He banged on the door again, but still nothing. Worried, Aunt did the only thing he knew how to do. He backed up and shoved his way through the stall door. On the other side was James. barely alive and unconscious. He had slash marks all over his body, and on his forehead a $10 bill had been held in place with a push.
Indeed it is.
Looked like it had been
Who walking up
taken from
behind
the
me?
club
Oh.
Ant dragged his friend out of the stall and called 911
Can I?
right away, exactly as the clock struck midnight. Slowly, people started to figure out that something was wrong in the bathroom, and eventually all of his friends joined him there. They all waited for the police and the ambulance to arrive. Evelyn and the other girls got a ride home from a police officer because of how drunk they were.
Picked up.
Mike went with James in the ambulance, but Ant had to get his car out of
Bro,
valet.
you gonna bring your behind here? Nah, come here. Yeah, what's good? Don't run.
Didn't even register.
You ain't no liquor. Stop acting like you're a
It was New
liquor.
Year's Eve. No one had any idea what the cause was, and no one saw anything according to everybody that had been interviewed.
Kind of bust that lock off.
The police speculated that he had made somebody angry, but all Ant knew and cared about was that his friend was hurt.
Follow the blood trail. Follow the blood mark.
He picked up his car and headed to the hospital and parked in the parking garage. The garage was quiet for a holiday, Ant noted as he got out of his car.
Oh, I don't like that. Ooh, that's one of ours.
Wrote it off and continued his way to the waiting room. He was too wrapped up in thinking about what was going on. When he got up to the emergency room, Mike was in there crying. "It doesn't look good, Ant. He was attacked with something really sharp. And the $10, like, what was that about? What do you think happened, Ant?" Before Ant could produce an answer, he heard the giggle again in his head. And that made him remember the girl from the line. The girl who spoke to him at the bar. The one he had turned down for being rude about his friends, and then he left the $10 bill for her drink. The giggle was in his head again. Oh God, he thought. That girl. Could she have attacked James? Ant was about to run out to the car and check where he had first heard the giggle when the doctor came out and stopped them both, proceeding to explain to them what had killed James. James was dead. Blood loss. An artery had been severed. Ant was furious. Mike started wailing. Because Ant was convinced the girl did something and that it was connected to the giggling he heard, he ran back to the parking lot. He didn't wait in the waiting room. He ran to the stairs, sped down to the garage, where he looked around everywhere. There wasn't a soul in sight. He got over to his car and noticed broken glass on the ground. Turning his gaze upward, he could see that the back window was broken. And on the front windshield, written in what looked like blood, were the words, "No means no." Ant didn't understand. Could this all have happened just from putting an arm around someone? Being uncomfortable is one thing, but murder? Ant didn't touch the car and backed away, ready to return to the police officer and report the break-in and how he believed it was all connected. "I really liked you," he heard a girl's voice behind him. Slowly he spun on his heels. Standing there covered in blood was Sue, holding a long knife. And she had a smile on her face, looking as if no one had died. "I can't believe you defended that monster."
Defended what monster?
Growing angry, but he knew not to lash back out at her. He never would have anyway, and she had him and his friends all wrong. James was innocent. Ant clenched his fists and turned to the stairwell, ready to report that Sue was there. She stopped him by running up behind him and holding the knife up to his back. "You're all the same. You are going to protect a predator."
All he did was say hello to you.
He put an arm around you, and I spoke to you for an hour with only wholesome intentions. No one was trying to hurt you. "Everyone is trying to hurt me," Sue said, sounding delusional and paranoid. "All of you are the same."
Who?
Ant pleaded with her, saying that they were not at all the same, but she didn't want to listen. She demanded he turn around and get back in the car. Afraid of dying too, Ant slowly turned and got into the driver's seat. Sue followed by getting in the back seat behind him, holding the knife close to his neck. "Drive," she demanded.
I want to drove.
And with that,
All right.
Ant took off. As the car was leaving the parking garage, Mike came rushing into the garage and started running after the car, followed by the police officer. They noted the vandalism, the broken glass on the ground, and that Ant wasn't alone.
I don't mess with every door in here.
The ensuing chase proved pointless, and Ant, as well as Sue, were never seen again. As everyone looked for answers, they discovered that this wasn't the first time this girl played vigilante, and not the first city either. The search went well into the new year until Ant's car was finally pulled from a lake near his house. There had been blood on the seats and everywhere else throughout the car, but no sign of bodies. The message on the window had long been washed off by the lake water, but Sue made her message clear. Even the good guys die young.
Bruh.
Office Christmas parties can often be a lot of fun, even though you're still basically at work and around your coworkers. The thing is that you're around people that you don't normally loosen up with, and it can be exciting to get to know them more personally. Sometimes people connect in ways that they didn't think they would. At least that was how Chris felt about office parties in the past. He usually liked to have a few drinks and show everyone his funny side, as well as brag about everything he's been working on for the company. After several years of working at an entry-level position, he'd been moved to another floor and to a department with a bigger title and bigger salary. This Christmas, he would be mingling with some new people, and he really wanted to leave a good impression. There were also a few ladies that he was interested in talking to, even though he always tried to keep his feelings
I guess I gotta go back upstairs then, because I can't go nowhere down here.
And also, the boost in his ego from his new promotion made him feel more untouchable at the company he worked for. And he wasn't afraid of losing his standing with anyone, or being called in by human resources. He was planning on putting forth his usual shtick, but this time he would try to impress one of the women he desperately wanted to get to know.
Can't go nowhere downstairs, so back upstairs I go.
He was a well-known womanizer, though, talking about everyone he thought was attractive at any given moment. Chris wore his best suit the night of the party. He managed to do his usual thing, drawing a crowd around him like he was a magnet and planting himself near the punch bowl. He could rattle on and on. He told funny stories about his time in the lower ranks of the company. He brought up people he knew and people who were promoted with him, showing off how popular he was and how far he had come. He told the story of how he was given the promotion twice, as if he was the only person in history to receive one. And smug as he was, the group around him still found him charming. Or at least, that is what he thought. So he kept going, until he was met with a distraction. Out of the corner of his eye, standing next to the huge Christmas tree, he noticed a woman he didn't recognize from any of the departments. She had on a gorgeous red dress and held a small black purse in her hands. She looked around nervously as people walked by her. He didn't understand why she was alone, being that she looked amazing. He made her his target as he excused himself from the crowd of laughing coworkers, and he then made his way over towards the glistening tree and the woman who looked ravishing beneath it. "What a present Santa left for me this year," he exclaimed as he sipped away at his drink. The woman smiled at him, trying to hide her disgust, not sure how to respond to his uncomfortable gesture. "I sure hope you aren't shy," he then said, trying to meet her eyes with his. Finally, she looked up at him. "I need a drink. Would you like a refill?" she asked, reaching for his cup.
Ow!
Sorry,
Stunned by her
my bad.
response, he freely handed his cup over to her.
Bruh, you was literally in my way, girl. Not like I was literally trying
She
to hit
took
you.
it, nodding. "I'm Nadia. I'll be right back with our drinks."
I can't stay here while June's
He
life is
managed
at
to get out
risk.
of
She's my
Chris
sister. I
as she
love
slithered
her.
away from
I
him
can't
and
live
towards the
without
punch
her.
bowl.
We're gonna go look.
She
Girl,
was
I
definitely
can't go
her
nowhere
best type, he
downstairs.
thought as he watched her turn her back. He couldn't wait to
Let's
see where
save
this would
point.
go. He waited under the tree,
I can't
excited
stay
that his
here.
plan for the evening
I
was
got
now
you,
in
got
motion.
you.
When Nadia
But I
returned,
can't go
she
nowhere
handed him
downstairs,
his
so it has
cup
to be
with
somewhere
another
upstairs.
warm smile. She sipped hers as he drank down his whole drink in one shot, showing off. He wiped at his mouth with a handkerchief and placed his hand uninvited on her back. She didn't flinch.
What's worth all
So
that
what
hassle?
department are you in, Nadia? I don't recognize you, he said, studying her face. She set her glass down and took his hand from her shoulder and held it in hers. It was cold from the glass. Oh, I need to warm you up, I think. Chris laughed, still trying to make his moves.
Wait, let me
Well,
get back in there.
Then why don't you show me your office?
I'll move to the left.
Nadia smirked at him. Chris was stunned. We didn't even get to the karaoke yet, but sure, why not? I'd love to get to know the new employees. I'm part of management now, you know.
Okay, that's blocked.
He continued gloating as Nadia led him past the Christmas tree and down a corridor to the elevators. He started to feel woozy, but figured he just drank that last cup too fast. But then he was confused by the elevators. Could she actually work on the top floor with the owners? Is she someone even more important than he is? Then she pressed the down button and... Wait, he thought. Why are we going down? Nadia pulled him into the elevator, and as the doors closed, she pressed the number for his old floor. Suddenly, Chris felt uneasy and didn't really want anything to do with her. His ego was still going strong, though, even though he could feel that something was going wrong with his body.
Okay, this is where it's supposed to go.
But before he could come up with any way out, he became dizzy and fell over onto his side inside the elevator. You don't remember, do you? Nadia said. As Chris struggled to reply, out of her purse, Nadia pulled a pair of glasses and a hair tie. She grabbed her long brown hair, put it up in her messy bun, and put on the glasses.
That's just gross.
And then she wiped away her lipstick, leaving a mess of red around her mouth. I know it was 5 parties ago, but I sure didn't forget you. You have a way with women, Chris. Horror came over Chris's face. He recognized her finally as he sunk to the bottom of the elevator. It was his secretary from years ago. He couldn't even remember her name, but he remembered taking her home from the Christmas party for the night and promising her the moon. She had taken it seriously and before long became unbearable for him to work with, leaving love notes on Post-its and calling his office phone over and over throughout the day. So much so that he had her switched for someone else and blocked her on all of his devices. He reported her to Human Resources in order to get her moved, and he thought she eventually let go of the whole thing now that she was on the opposite side of the office. The elevator dinged at his old floor, and now Chris was paralyzed, but barely alert. Nadia dragged him across the floor and into his old office, pulling him behind the old desk. She locked him in there as he tried shouting for help, but his voice was weak and slurred. But he kept trying to yell out to get anyone's attention. Don't go anywhere, Nadia yelled on the other side of the door before laughing.
Girl, I can't get downstairs.
Chris frantically tried to will his arms and legs to move. He regained some feeling in his legs while he waited for her return. When she came back, she was now dressed in sweats that looked like his old pair. She flew open the office door with a deranged look on her face. I took these from your house that night. I hope you don't mind. I just thought you would be around more, and it would be good to have a set of your clothes at my house. She sauntered over to him as he continued trying to yell.
Why would you
No
run
one
in
can
front
hear
of me
you.
for?
They're doing karaoke now. Chris's arms began to tingle with feeling again. It was becoming clear that whatever she gave him was wearing off, but he didn't want her to know that. He was planning in his mind how he would get out of there, when from her pocket Nadia pulled a knife and held it in front of his eyes. Before she could say anything else, Chris used all the strength he had to push her full force against the desk. He scrambled to his feet and hobbled over to the door and to the emergency stairs. He didn't know how fast he'd be able to run up to the party. It seemed like too much of a chore in his condition.
Downstairs. No, they're not downstairs.
He decided to head down instead to the garage, grasping the railings as he stumbled down the stairs. His keys were still jingling in his pocket, so at least she hadn't taken those. From behind him, he could hear the door burst open, and Nadia started down after him. The scariest part was that she was moving slowly, with confidence, knowing that she could easily catch him in his state. "What's the matter? You don't like me anymore?" she mocked. As Chris got closer to the bottom level, he could hear that she was gaining on him. He turned back to look and could see an axe blade poke out.
I don't want everywhere downstairs.
Without waiting to see her come after it, he ran towards the door and flew out into the garage. He had to hide. He crouched behind the car. Nadia came flying out into the garage with the axe swinging in the air, laughing to herself. I can't believe I thought you liked me, and then you moved me away from you, which made people think I was crazy, which is why I'm still in the same job, in the same position, and you got the glorious promotion. I just thought I would remind you how you were able to get ahead of me by breaking my heart, at Christmas no less. She yelled out into the garage that was filled with cars from all the other guests. Chris's car was closer to the exit since he had his own spot. She would know that. He had to figure out a way to get around her. Nadia began dragging and scraping the axe along the concrete, all while suddenly, without warning, hitting random cars with it, trying to spook him out of his hiding spot.
Oh, what up, Amy?
He kept his composure even as she struck the exact car that he was hiding behind. Come out, Chris. I want to finish giving you your gift.
No, I'm good.
As she walked and got further away from him, he decided it was time to run. He gripped his keys still in his pocket and jumped. By now, the drug had completely worn off, and he was able to run faster. He didn't pay attention to where she was behind him. He didn't have a second to lose by looking back. He knew he had to unlock his car, jump in it, hurry out of the garage. Approaching his driver's side door, he saw that the window had been broken and a brick was laying on the driver's seat. He could also see that all of the wiring under his steering wheel had been ripped out. Stepping back, he looked down.
Oh, now I can hear it. That's funny. But before I couldn't hear nothing. But now I can hear it.
Pass out. He was bleeding heavily and fell onto his back, looking up at the psychotic woman who was now wearing his clothes and holding an axe above him.
I ran everywhere downstairs.
Nadia,
couldn't go nowhere.
We can talk about this, he begged, out of breath. He could feel the blood dripping from his head to the ground. My name isn't even Nadia, she screamed, but she held the axe ready to strike. Chris threw his arms up in front of him as if that would block anything. But instead of hitting him, she struck his car.
We almost did nothing. I can't get the door open.
He thought that maybe he wasn't going to die after all. She was just crazy.
Maybe that's one of them. Nope.
He felt like this was his last chance to escape her and call for help.
Nope.
He backed himself up against the wall and used it to help stand up as he watched her go mad, destroying his new car. He tried not to think about it as he began to sprint past her, but he was caught by surprise when another car came rushing through the garage entrance, directly hitting him. When Chris opened his eyes, he was on a stretcher. Standing next to him in the paramedics was a guy dressed like Santa. He had been running late for the office party and had rushed into the garage entrance, hitting Chris when he came out of nowhere.
Which door?
There was no talk of Nadia or any sign of her, just Chris's mangled car and head injuries. Do you remember anything before the accident? And is this your car, sir? The paramedic asked him. By now, some of Chris's coworkers had been
Why are you scared of you? Come here.
Chris kept repeating Nadia's name over and over.
Get the whooping.
That wasn't her name, so no one knew what he was talking about. He overheard his coworkers explain that he had disappeared from the party with a woman and hadn't come back. Did you ingest anything illegal, sir? Chris said he didn't know, but that the girl who called herself Nadia had gotten him a drink that might have been laced with something. And then as the paramedics began rolling him into the ambulance, he looked up and there was Nadia. Hi, she said. I'm his girlfriend Jane. I cannot believe this happened.
Lord.
One of his coworkers texted me and I came as quickly as I could. Nadia was Chris's clothes, making the girlfriend
ain't pretty at all.
Chris began to protest, but he couldn't really move his jaw too much. Jane,
okay, she's dead, but you gotta get out of here.
Caressed his face and shushed him, telling him to try not to talk.
You either come for or leave you behind.
Hooking him up to a sedative so that they could help dull the pain until they got to the hospital. And then slowly, as Chris began to get groggy and fade out, he could see her pull
She
out
can
the
stay
knife
with her talking
from
about.
I don't believe
All Chris could remember was that the ambulance was playing Christmas music as he watched her go for the paramedic. Then Chris completely blacked out. It took a few hours, but the ambulance was eventually
Why are
found.
you walking in
It
front
had
of me,
careened
Sarge?
off the highway and hit a tree. It was empty except for the 2 paramedics who were now dead, and on the side of it were words written in blood. They read,
I don't have
"All
no
I
keys.
wanted for Christmas was you." The police searched the entire area but found nothing. Co-workers were able to identify the woman as Mindy, the secretary from the marketing department. They remembered what had happened all those Christmases ago, but had no idea she
I don't
was
think that's why they
capable of
turned.
anything.
Just take it.
A search of her home turned up nothing except photos of Chris on dates with other women and at work. Of course, he had no idea she had taken them, and they were hanging all over her Christmas tree. They also found angry letters addressed to Chris in her journals, as well as various plans tacked to the walls on how she would get back at him. There was also all the HR paperwork.
Seriously?
The sexual harassment accusation that Chris had made against her all those years ago. It was half burned in her fireplace. But there was no sign that she had been back to the house, either alone
Jesus.
or with Chris. No one ever saw Chris or Nadia, Jane, Mindy ever again.
She better be.
That's for sure.
My husband and I had a huge fight over the dumbest thing ever. It was about the dishwasher. He thinks I don't load it mindfully or whatever, and I told him he can do it himself. Next thing you know, we were screaming about the dishwasher and a million other things, and needless to say, I later found myself alone in our bedroom as he stormed out with his pillow. "Blankets are in the hallway closet," I yelled after him, feeling sarcastic since I was the only person that actually puts the blankets away. I heard him open and slam the closet door, and then stomp down the stairs. And then everything was silent. I laid in bed for a while, trying not to cry. I hate it when we fight, and I especially hate to go to bed angry. We didn't do it often, but if we did, I would cry myself to sleep. This night I didn't want to do that. I wanted to calm down, and I was debating whether I should head down and apologize, but pride got the best of me. If he wanted to make up, he could come back upstairs. I know, that's a really dumb way of looking at it. The room was dark, and I laid there staring at the ceiling. Tears kept coming, and I just kept wiping them away. I kept telling myself to cool off and then go to sleep, but I was so exhausted from my day. I couldn't keep my eyes open any longer. Soon I fell asleep.
2 more of these.
I thought my only problem would be the bad mood I would wake up with in the morning. Little did I know what was about to happen. I was startled awake sometime in the middle of the night. A crash in the corner of my room. All the lights were still out, so I assumed that Dan was asleep downstairs and we didn't have pets, so I got nervous.
Do I still got my
decided to turn on the lamp beside the bed to be sure it was nothing. But when I went to move,
I'm gonna give her the chainsaw.
My arms and legs were pinned to the bed. I tried to let out a scream to Dan, but nothing got out of my mouth. I just let out a shallow breath. That's when I started to hear it. It sounded like 1,000 little legs scurrying across the wooden floor. Then I noticed a shadow in the upper corner of the room, hanging on the bed.
Oh!
The upper half of the shadow was shaped like a person.
Heal, boy. Heal. Heal. Heal.
Had legs
Heal.
everywhere. I tried moving
Heal
again,
real quick while I
but
get this antidote.
and I still couldn't scream. As I struggled internally, I
Heal,
saw
boy.
the shadow
Heal.
slowly begin
Bad
to
boy.
move. And then with a squelch,
Heal.
it seemed like 1,000
Heal for that
eyes
mercy.
blinked open in its head, and they were glowing red. And then I felt it, that itch that comes from insects running across your skin. My eyes were able to glance down, and a ton of tiny black spiders were crawling from all sides of the bed. A few had already made it across my body and were moving towards my face. No scream, nothing came out of me. I was completely powerless. I looked back at the creature on the wall. It began moving sideways, still facing me, but coming closer to the bed. As I felt the first spider hit my neck, I made sure my mouth was sealed. Whatever they were, they couldn't get inside me. And then I thought about my nose and my ears. The spiders distracted me so much that by the time I looked, the creature was no longer on the side of the room. And suddenly I felt my chest give like a weight fell on it. The creature had dropped from the ceiling and was sitting on me. It moved in closer as I felt more little spiders make their way up my face. I knew it was drooling because I felt wet droplets on my throat. I can't describe exactly how it felt. Not heavy like a person, but heavy enough that I couldn't breathe right.
Who in here?
That's when I felt the spiders begin to crawl up my nose and in my ears. I was so paralyzed that the only thing I could do was sweat. I could feel my heart pound against one of the creature's legs that had wrapped itself around me, and that's when I felt the toilet flush. Dan had made his way upstairs to the bathroom. The creature turned to the hallway and listened. Footsteps inched closer to the bedroom. As soon as Dan turned into the room, everything disappeared. The creature, the spiders, all of it disappeared into thin air.
Though?
I let out the loudest scream of my life, and Dan jumped, thinking I was screaming at him. Okay, I'll go back downstairs.
No.
Joking. I sat up, able to move again, and I begged him to come over, sobbing as I asked. He sat on the edge of the bed next to me and put his arms around me, and I cried it all out. I couldn't even speak about what had happened.
Wait, what the heck?
He kept asking, but I just kept crying. Between the sweat and the tears, I was soaked. I started itching at my face and my ears and all over my body. I couldn't shake the feeling of the little legs all over me. Finally, I looked up at Dan, pulled him close. Please, I said, let's never go to bed angry again. He nodded,
Who's doing
still
that
stunned by my initial reaction, and pulled me into another hug. We apologized to one another, and
so I was
night,
supposed to go upstairs.
Gotcha. Our issues before we go to sleep. I never told him exactly what happened, but I hoped that whatever it was would never happen again.
Are you at least gonna shoot if somebody runs at me?
Gianna found herself kicked out of her boyfriend Joe's apartment. They had a fight about where they would be spending the holidays. His mom's or hers. It was no secret his family didn't like Gianna. Her mom loved him though, and she thought it would be better if they did the holidays with her this year. They had been together long enough that Gianna would be expecting a ring soon, and the least he could do was give her a few holidays with her family. She would have to put up with his for the rest of her life. Rather than continue arguing, Joe asked her to leave and told her he would call her in the morning. Gianna sat for a moment on the steps outside his building crying, tossing down her keys and bag next to her.
We need magnetic cards to access the security.
The wind picked up a few times and blew leaves in her face and hair, sticking to her tears. She went to brush her hair back and noticed someone across the street. It was a man, but she couldn't make out a face or any colors on his clothes. She pulled up her phone and texted Joe, letting him know she didn't want to keep fighting. She just wanted him to call her because there was a creepy guy across the street looking at her.
You know what? Just bring your behind.
She was afraid to start walking home. She stared at the phone screen, waiting for a call or a response. It felt like forever.
I don't know. Mamacito!
Who wasn't trying too hard to hide himself. He wanted to be seen. She saw the 3 dots pop up as Joe started typing back.
Get off her. 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 Get off her.
I don't see anyone from my front window. You are fine.
Lay down. 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 Let it go.
They were behind
Let go.
In front of his neighbor's red Jeep. She waited again for a response. The dots came back up. I am looking straight at the Jeep and the tree. Stop trying to make me feel bad. We will talk in the morning. I love you. She was stunned. What could it mean? There had to be
How many doses of serums do I need?
On the 3rd floor. The creep was standing there and staring straight at her. His arms hung by his side, and he was standing straight up. She knew it wasn't a person standing on the sidewalk waiting for someone or enjoying the breeze. He was specifically watching her, purposely looking intimidating.
One key card. All right.
She stood up and
you dang right I'm gonna say you.
No cash for a cab. She checked her bank account on her phone. Not enough to request an Uber. She would have to walk home alone. The area Gianna lived in was urban, and she was blocks away from any shops or busy avenues. In fact, she lived along the park side, and Joe was closer to the park than to the people. She knew she had to brave the 7 or so blocks along the park to get home. She would be a sitting duck.
Oh, I'm shotgun.
Looking up from her phone, she saw that the man had disappeared. She panicked now. Where had he gone? She whipped her head back and forth looking for any sign of where he could have gone or hid. She started sweating.
I'm not
even
gonna go in there yet. No, sir.
She called Joe again, really hoping he would pick up. He didn't. She called 2 more times, and by the 3rd time, he had turned his phone off. She knew she couldn't stay there, so she picked up her bag and stepped down onto the curb.
Quick question.
She took a deep breath and
Did
looked
I give
around
her that
again.
shotgun?
No one. It was like she made this guy up in her head almost. She heard rustling in a bush outside the house next door.
5 shells, 5 in the chamber.
Most likely the wind. But she took it as a sign that she should start moving, and fast. She headed in the direction of the park, not looking back. Gianna was speed walking. When she got to the corner by the park, she turned around. There wasn't anyone following her as far as she could see. She turned the corner and kept speed walking. Trying to get her mind off the weirdo back by Joe's building, she concentrated on the holidays and the argument. She didn't know how she would approach the whole thing the next day. Her mind was swimming with worry. What else could be said that wouldn't become another argument? Deep down, she knew she would probably have to give in to his demands, and that really bothered her.
Hold on, go back over.
But she had been with him so long, and she didn't want his family to come between them. She sighed aloud and then realized again that she might still have someone behind her. Turning back again, only a block from her house, she could see that there was still no one. Relief. She got to her house, where she still lived with her mom. She went into her bag to grab her keys, but nothing. Oh my gosh, she must have left them outside on Joe's steps.
That's who I came in at.
She was too nervous and forgot to pick them up when she started her walk home. She called her mom quickly to have her let her in, and then tried Joe again. His phone was still off. She thought she would head over to his place in the morning and hope they were still outside. The next day, Gianna woke up and the first thing she did was call Joe. The phone
How did I notice
still
this?
off. That was weird. She went down to greet her mom, who was getting ready to run errands. She asked her if she could drive her by Joe's house to grab her keys and check with him.
Oh, no.
She said sure, and they got in the car.
Wasn't trying to say.
Outside his building, the sun poured down on the porch steps.
No.
There were no keys where she thought she had left them. Maybe a neighbor put them in the mailbox. She jumped out of the car and asked her mother to wait. She went up the steps and through the first door. The mailboxes were empty. She rang Joe's buzzer. Nothing.
And I got some
The neighbor was
samples,
walking out and
as you
smiled.
requested.
Since she knew Gianna, she let her in. I could have sworn you were at Joe's last night. I heard so much moving around. The neighbor gave a wry smile and continued out. Gianna ran up to the 3rd floor.
Good to know.
She knocked. Nothing. She knocked harder, and the door opened on its own. What the neighbor said really worried her.
Alright.
She walked in.
Well, he says he's already here, so
But
what I need out of here.
The first room off the hallway was the living room. It was much like she had left it. Pizza box still open, television still on the same channel.
I did it. The lab door's open.
Next, she crept into the kitchen. Still no one. That's when she saw her keys on the counter.
Oh!
They were the only thing that had changed about the kitchen. She
Don't play with me.
went towards
Bite.
them to pick them up.
Bite!
Of course she had a key to Joe over there.
Bite!
As they jingled, she heard
Get back.
footsteps over them
Bite.
and the slamming
Bite.
of the front door.
Sorry.
She called out again.
How am I a jerk? I didn't do that junk on purpose.
She thought nothing was making sense. She went back into the hall and down to his bedroom. As she entered, she could see that his drawers had been emptied all over the bed and his closet looked ransacked. That's when she noticed his sneakers peeking out from behind the bed.
Sure.
She screamed and ran over to him by the window. As she looked out the window, standing across the street was the man from the night before, now more visible. His eyes covered with the hood,
I only got 2 of these
with a grin
suckers.
across his face as he smiled up at her and held out what looked like a ring box.
I need one more.
Then he took off running, leaving her to frantically dial 911.
What is actually else another place I can get to, but I can't get it myself. Gotta get Red Bull to get up in there.
CeraVe, what your skin craves. Office Christmas parties can often be a lot of fun. Even though you're still basically at work and around your coworkers. The thing is that you're around people that you don't normally loosen up with, and it can be exciting to get to know them more personally. Sometimes people connect in ways that they didn't think they would. At least that was how Chris felt about office parties in the past. He usually liked to have a few drinks and show everyone his funny side, as well as brag about everything he's been working on for the company. After several years of working at an entry-level position, he'd been moved to another floor and to a department with a bigger title and bigger salary.
Did you
This
read
just meant he would be mingling with some new people.
I know
He really
you found
wanted to
things
leave a
hard
good
since
impression.
before, but so have
There were
I.
also a few ladies.
Yeah, that steroid do that big drawback.
Always tried to keep his
That
feelings
pain
at
medicine.
work.
For far too long now.
And also, the boost in his ego from his new promotion made him feel more untouchable
If
at
I
the
can do it,
company
there's
he
no
worked
reason
for.
for you to lose.
See, he been taking them drugs.
It's been 2 years, Kenny.
Or being called
Don't
in
just
by
give
human
up.
resources.
You've always
See, let's call that drawback.
Forth his usual
I just
shit,
can't
but
take it
this
anymore.
time he would try to impress
Then
one
you're
of the
going to die,
women he
little brother.
desperately wanted to get to know.
Grow up
They
and
were
save your
powerful
life,
and business.
please.
Oh no, he good.
Womanizer, though, talking about everyone
Go.
attractive at any given moment. Chris wore his best suit the night of the party. The woman could do his usual crowd around him like he was a magnet and planting.
That's all you had to say.
He could rattle on and on.
I'm not even sure.
Stories about
I'm not even moving the control.
He
Alright.
brought up people he knew and people who were promoted with him, showing off how popular he was and how far he had come. He told the story of how he was given the promotion twice, as if he was the only person in history to receive one. And small as he was, the group around him still found him charming. Or at least, that is what he thought. So he kept going. Until he was met with a distraction.
Okay.
To the huge Christmas tree, he noticed a woman he didn't recognize from any of his acquaintances. She had on a gorgeous red dress and held a small black purse in her hands. She was going nervously as people walked by.
Which one is it then?
She was alone.
Yeah, that's an instant.
He made her his target as he excused himself from the crowd of laughing coworkers. And he then made his way over towards the glistening tree and the woman who looked ravishing.
Well, I don't know which one's the right combination. How do I do it? Come on here. Tourette's.
He exclaimed as he sipped away at his drink. The woman smiled at him, trying to hide her disgust, not sure how to respond to his uncomfortable gesture. I sure hope you aren't shy, he then said, trying to meet her eyes with his. Finally, she looked up at him. I need a drink. Would you like a refill? She asked, reaching for his cup. Stunned by her response, he freely handed his cup over to her, hoping she was serious. She took it, nodding. I'm Nadia. I'll be right back with our drink. He managed to get out of Chris as she slithered away from him and towards the punch bowl. She was definitely his thought as he watched her turn back. He couldn't wait to see where this would go.
I don't know which was the right one. Which one's the
When Nadia returned, she handed him his cup with another warm smile. She sipped hers as he drank down his whole drink in one shot, showing off. He wiped his mouth with a handkerchief and placed his hand uninvited on her back. She didn't flinch. So what the fuck are you in, Nadia?
Really?
I don't recognize you.
Really?
He said, staring at her face. She set her glass down and
You was about to get blasted. All
handed her.
17 clips.
It was cold from the glass. Oh, I need to warm you up, I think. Chris laughed, still trying to make his moves. Well, then why don't you show me your office?
No. Don't get up. Stay down. This is the real world.
Didn't even get to the karaoke yet.
Get on that ground. Move, so I can get with that. Oh, heck no.
More than the employees. I'm part of management
That's right.
now, you know.
Come here.
He continued floating as Nadia
Stay
led
down.
him past
Stay down.
the Christmas tree and down a corridor to the elevators.
Somewhere in this hospital.
He started
Let's
to
try
feel
to get in.
woozy, but figured he just drank that last cup too fast. But then he was confused by the elevators. Could she actually work on the top floor with the owners? Is she someone even more important than he is? Then she pressed the down button and... Wait, he thought. Why am I going down? Nadia pulled him into the elevator, and as the doors closed, she pressed
Hurry
the number
up!
for his old floor. Suddenly, Chris felt uneasy and didn't really want anything
trying
to
to
do with
turn it.
her. His ego was still going strong, though, even though he could feel that something was going wrong with his body.
Fine, move. I'll do it.
But before he could come up with any way out, he became dizzy and fell over onto his side inside the elevator. You don't remember, do you? Nadia said. As Chris struggled to reply like a kid.
Can you deal with that, please?
She grabbed her long brown hair, put it up in her messy bun, and put on the glasses.
Bruh.
And then she wiped away her lipstick and the mess of red around her mouth. I know it was 5 parties ago, but I sure didn't
Bruh.
you.
Are you okay?
Lead the way within it, Chris. Horror came over Chris's face. He recognized her finally as he sunk to the bottom of the elevator. It was his secretary from years ago. He couldn't even remember her name, but he remembered taking her home from the Christmas party for the night and promising her the moon. She had taken it seriously and before long became unbearable for him to work with, leaving love notes on Post-its and calling his office phone over and over throughout the day. So much so that he had her switched for someone else and blocked her on all of his devices. He reported her to Human Resources in order to get her moved, and he thought she eventually let go of the whole thing now that she was on the opposite side of the
Do you
office.
wish to go back to your last save?
The elevator dinged at his old floor, and now Chris was paralyzed but fairly alert. Nadia dragged him across the floor and into
Was
his
not
old
intending
office,
to die
putting
there.
him behind the old
What?
desk. She locked him in there as he tried shouting for help, but his voice was weak and slurred. But he kept trying to yell out to get anyone's attention. Don't go anywhere, Nadia yelled
the
on the other side
elevator's
of the door
jammed.
before
We have
laughing.
to find another way down.
She disappeared for a little bit as Chris frantically tried to will his arms and legs to move.
Seriously?
He regained some feeling in his legs while he waited for her return. When she came back, she was now dressed in sweats that looked like his old pair. She flew open the office door with a deranged look on her face. I took these from your house that night. I hope you don't mind. I just thought you would be around more, and it would be good to have a set of your clothes at my house.
So tell me this thing is
She
just
sauntered over to him as he continued trying to yell. No one can hear you. They're doing karaoke now. Chris's arms began to tingle with feeling again. It was becoming clear that whatever she gave him was wearing off, but he didn't want her to know that. He was planning in his mind how he would get out of there, when from her pocket, Nadia pulled a knife and held it in front of his eyes. Before she could say anything else, Chris used all the strength he had to push her full force against the desk.
Corey, we need
He
magnetic
scrambled to his
cards.
feet and
I
hobbled
know.
over to the door and to the emergency stairs. He didn't know how fast he'd be able to run up to the party. It seemed like too much of a chore in his condition. He decided to head down instead to the garage, grasping the railings as he stumbled down the stairs. His keys were still jingling in his pocket, so at least she hadn't taken those. From behind him, he could hear the door burst open, and Nadia started down after him. The scariest part was that she was moving slowly,
You
with
attended athletics
confidence,
class,
knowing that
Corey?
she could easily
Actually,
catch
my
him in
girlfriend's
his
never
state.
lived on the ground floor. And their
What's
dad's
the matter? You don't like me
I
anymore?
wonder why.
She mocked. As Chris got closer to the bottom level, he could hear that she was gaining on him. He turned back to look and could see an axe blade poke around the railing. Without waiting to see
Climb
her
your butt
come
down,
after
or
it,
slide
he
your butt
ran
down. Hurry
towards
up.
the door and flew out into the garage. He had to hide. He crouched behind a car. Nadia came flying out into the garage with the axe swinging in the air, laughing to herself. I can't believe I thought you liked me. And then you moved me away from you, which made people think I was crazy. Which is why I'm still
Once
in the
again, he
same
just used
job,
you.
in the same position. And you got the glorious promotion. I just thought I would remind you how you were able to get ahead of me by breaking my heart. At Christmas, no less. She yelled out into the garage that was filled with cars from all the other guests.
Okay, when I clicked the last
Chris's
save,
car was
it
closer
was
to
that
the
one,
exit
but
since he had his own
apparently I don't
spot.
have to fight.
She would know that. He had to figure out a way to get around.
Wait, do I already have the key cards already?
Nadia began dragging and scraping the axe along the concrete, all while suddenly, without warning, hitting random cars with it, trying to spook him out of his hiding spot. He kept his composure even as she struck the exact car that he was hiding behind. Come out, Chris. I want to finish giving you your gift.
I'm good. I'll stay in.
As she walked and got further away from him, he decided it was time to run. He gripped his keys still in his pocket and jumped. By now, the drug had completely worn off, and he was able to run faster. He didn't pay attention to where she was behind him. He didn't have a second to lose by looking back. He knew he had to unlock his car, jump in it, hurry out of the garage. Approaching his driver's side door, he saw that the window had been broken and a brick was laying on the driver's seat. He could also see that all of the wiring under his steering wheel had been ripped out.
Oh, there go the last key.
Stepping back, he looked down and saw that his tires were flat.
Well, how many do I have now?
Out of nowhere, the axe blade smashed into
I gotta go back for another key.
Amazingly, he fell to the ground but didn't pass out. He was bleeding heavily and fell on
the
his
other
back
key in the other
looking
room,
up at
back
this
here.
psychotic
That's what the
woman
last
who
key
was
card
now
is.
wearing his clothes and holding an axe above him. Nadia, we can talk about this, he begged, out of breath. He could feel the blood dripping from his head to the ground. My name isn't even Nadia, she screamed, as she held the axe ready to strike. Chris threw his arms up in front of him, as if that would block anything. But instead of hitting him, she struck his car over and over and over again. He thought that maybe he wasn't going to die after all. She was just crazy. He felt like this was his last chance to escape her and call for help. He backed himself up against the wall and used it to help stand up as he watched her go mad, destroying his new car. He tried not to think about it as he began to sprint past her, but he was caught by surprise when another car came rushing through the garage entrance, directly hitting him. When Chris opened his eyes, he was on a stretcher. Standing next to him, and
I don't know a lot, really.
was a guy dressed like Santa. He had been running late for the office party and had rushed into the garage entrance, hitting Chris when he came out of nowhere. There was no talk of Nadia or any sign of her, just Chris's mangled car and head injuries. Do you remember anything before the accident? And is this your car, sir? The paramedic asked him. By now, some of Chris's coworkers had been called down to the garage to be interviewed. Chris kept repeating Nadia's name over and over, only that wasn't her name, so no one knew what he was talking about.
Don't go scared behind here.
He overheard his coworkers
Sorry.
explain that he had disappeared from the party with a woman. And
Yeah, she could take you behind. Oh! Bad luck. Bad luck. Bad luck. Get back. Heal, sickle. Heal, fiddle.
But that the girl who called herself Nadia had
That's
gotten
right. How'd I tell you, Phil?
And then as the paramedics began rolling him into the ambulance, he looked up and there was Nadia. Hi, she said. I'm his
Last one's
girlfriend
in here,
Jane.
so I can go
I
back in
cannot
there and
believe
open
this
that thing
happened.
that's in there.
One of his coworkers texted
don't
me and I
move,
came
girl.
as quickly as
Move.
I could. Nadia was
And this is
dressed
where the
in
last key
Chris's
code is.
clothes,
Okay.
making the girlfriend story even more believable. Chris began to protest, but he couldn't really move his jaw too much. Jane or Nadia,
Collection, it will
whoever
make
she
things
was,
easier.
caressed his face and shushed him, telling him to try not to talk. One of the paramedics began hooking him up to a sedative so that they could help dull the pain until they got to the hospital. And then slowly, as Chris began to get groggy and fade out, he could see her pull out the knife from earlier.
Open up. What's in here?
All Chris could
Crossbow.
remember was that the ambulance was playing Christmas music as he watched her go for the paramedic. Then Chris completely blacked out. It took a few hours, but the ambulance was eventually found. It had careened off the highway and hit a tree. It was empty except for the two paramedics who were now dead, and on the side of it were words written in blood. They read, "All I wanted for Christmas was you."
Did you
The
really
police
know?
searched the entire
They
area
can
but
mess
found
around all
nothing.
they want. Not you.
Co-workers
Found
were able
things
to
hard to
identify the
before.
woman as Mindy,
So have
the
I you.
secretary from the
It's
marketing
one more
department.
reason not to give up.
They remembered what had
You should
happened
never
all
give
those
up.
Christmases ago, but had
That's the
no
reason
idea
right there.
she was capable of anything
Far
like this.
too long now.
That's what kind of happens
A
when you
search of her home
do that
turned
drug
up
overdose
nothing
or too much
except
drugs.
photos of
Family.
Chris on
If I
dates
can
with
do
other
it, there's
women
no
and
reason
That
for you
painkiller.
to lose it.
of
That
course, they had no
painkiller.
idea
It's
she
been
had
2
taken
years,
them,
Kenny.
and they were hanging
Don't
all over
just
her
give
Christmas
up.
tree.
That painkiller.
You've always
They
been the
also found
stronger
angry
one,
letters
The
Abby.
addressed to
painkiller.
Chris in her
I just
journals,
can't
as
take
well
it
as
anymore.
various
That painkiller.
plans tacked
Then
to
you're
the
going to die,
walls
little
on
brother.
how she would get back at him.
Grow up
There was
and
also all the
save your
HR
life,
paperwork
please.
from the sexual harassment.
It ain't even that. I don't even think it's the painkiller doing all that, man. It was doing it. Well, actually, it was hurting him. I believe the reason why he was hurt because like he was shoving the backslash of it. But that right there, that ain't the painkiller. That's something else.
Nadia, Jane, Mindy, everyone.
Excuse me, let me do my task.
Flying overseas always made Andrew uneasy. His family was in London, and he had to leave his warm and sunny home in California to fly there for the holidays. He wasn't in the mood for the flight and didn't like to think about how cold he would be once he got off the plane. But for his mom, he would suffer it. She was his number one supporter, especially since he came out as trans. He felt that if he didn't go back home, it would hurt her too much, especially after she had done so much to make him comfortable in his own skin. Even getting him the hormone therapy and
Maybe
he would have to show her some gratitude 1 week a year, so the trade-off wasn't too bad. Andrew threw his carry-on in the space above the seat and got himself comfortable. He had at least 10 hours to kill on the plane. Sitting by the window, he hoped that the flight was late enough in the day that it wouldn't be
I need to come out,
no one
apparently.
would sit next to him. He wasn't very
Was it yellow, blue?
but as luck would have it, a young man sat down beside him and smiled at him as he sorted himself into his seat. Andrew tried to force a smile back. Not looking forward to heading home? The man said to Andrew. His accent was more northern English, Andrew noted. At least whoever he was, it was someone he could relate to if a conversation arose. Finding other Englishmen in California was no easy task, especially attractive ones. Andrew was a gay man and dating some of the men in the Los Angeles scene was getting old.
That took a while.
He left behind a sort of boyfriend who was not what he was looking for.
Make a sudden move and you
Andrew
get dropped,
craved
buddy.
someone who understood the importance of tea time. He was home.
I could have fixed all that glitching
He didn't
nonsense.
even realize it until this man
It's
sat
been a
down
while,
next
though.
to him.
Okay.
The man was still waiting for a response from Andrew.
Don't talk to me.
Oh, I just don't like long flights. Andrew laughed.
Nah, with your bony feet.
So excited that they were
Get down with them bony
Andrew
feet.
immediately
Nah.
began small talk about where they grew up and how long they had lived away from home. I'm Mike. The stranger
That's right.
held out
How that
his hand
tastes feel?
for a
That tastes
shake.
good medicine, right?
He was cute, Andrew noticed.
Dang, mind my own
He
business.
put his hand out too and shook back, feeling more at ease with the trip.
Corey is somewhere in this
The two
hospital.
men talked
Let's try
on
to
and
get
on
in.
about how they came to choose Los Angeles after years in England and what they were trying to become.
Okay, then you're not
An
get to
actor,
keep the crossbud,
Andrew said,
but you
smirking
have the
a bit.
crossbud.
So was everyone
But
else
you know
in
what I
Los
do
Angeles.
want?
Oh, that's formidable. I want to be a model, Mike said excitedly. A trendy occupation as well, so Andrew didn't feel too weird about his own dreams. The two went on and on about auditions and the luck that they had getting even the smallest jobs. It was becoming clear to Andrew that Mike was attracted
so
to
I can
him,
have a pistol.
touching his arm and saying flirty things. Only 2 hours into the flight, and it went from friendly chatting to something more. But Andrew wasn't the type to jump ship with the previous person and just start something new. As much as he craved someone like Mike, it wasn't the time or the place to start something new without leaving the person at home respectfully. With 8 more hours to go in the flight, he knew he had to tone down the chat to something a little more clipped. But Mike wouldn't let up. Around the 4th hour into the flight, it was clear that Andrew was going to have to mention
No, I'm not
his
wasting
man
pistol
back
on
home.
that.
He brought up the word boyfriend, and Mike's entire demeanor shifted.
Come on. I'm hurrying.
Andrew thought,
You thought your behind was getting in here, boy? Sit your behind out there. The first time you got in here, not the second time.
his chance to make a decent friend for the flight was now dashed. Andrew excused himself from the awkward situation at first by using the bathroom.
There's
He
still
had to
static.
squeeze by
The whole
Mike's legs,
county is
which
suffering
was
from
already
blackouts.
weird, but he made it to the back of the plane and shut the door. He stood in that small space, just breathing. What a bad flight to be on, he thought, about how he would change his return ticket to a day flight. Being around a bunch of people who didn't want to talk to him sounded better than being stuck with a few bored and tired people for 10 hours. And then suddenly there was a rattling sound behind him. It was the small door handle shaking violently. Someone was trying to get in. Andrew yelled, "Occupied!" and the rattling stopped on a dime. As Andrew put his hand to the handle to let himself out, it began rattling again. He stopped himself and backed up, yelling, "Occupied!" again, but this time the rattling didn't stop.
Here we are.
And then when it finally did, he heard a voice on the other side of the door.
I'm about to fix that.
Just focus on getting
That
out of
one's
here
getting
After a
alive.
minute of silence,
Oh,
he
no.
walked out to a flight attendant coming by like nothing had happened. Back to his seat, Mike sat there and smirked at Andrew as he was forced to slide by his legs again. Hopefully the harassment wouldn't continue,
Borrowed
but
a
he
battery
wasn't so
pack from the
lucky.
hospital. I
Mike grew
modified it so it
quiet
would be
and
compatible with your
passive-aggressive.
equipment. It will
The
last
rest of the
longer.
flight, he
Really?
slammed a few things and acted really weird when any of the flight
I may be a
attendants would
biology
approach him.
teacher, but I also serve
Andrew
beer.
couldn't help but feel the vibrations of Mike's slammings even as
He
he
did
tried
not
to
even
sleep
know
with
that.
headphones on. What a huge mistake, even talking at all, he thought. He didn't even want to go to the bathroom again.
I have zero.
The flight ended with a jolt through turbulence, and it woke Andrew from his sleep. But he was alone. It was like he dreamed of Mike.
That's be a save point here somewhere down.
He checked all of his belongings around him, and as the light went on for seatbelts, he grabbed at his carry-on to make sure nothing had been taken out of it. He noticed 3 rows in front of him.
I'm good.
Mike, next to a mop of curly white hair. That poor old woman. Mike had
I'm gonna
noticed
switch partners though.
Andrew's goal was to avoid him from that point on.
You coming with me?
I'm ready
The
for a
plane
fight.
came to a stop on the runway, and Andrew remained seated even as the plane began to empty. He didn't really care how obvious he was being. He was really not trying to fight with this guy at the airport. All of this because he wasn't single.
So you're saying I'm looking around
After
to
a
find
few
some more
minutes,
supposed
he
pieces.
finally stood
Gotcha,
up
thank
and
you.
peered
Let's
over
be
the
sure.
There's a
seats.
computer connected to the
Everyone
internet.
had gone except the mop of
Some
curly
slightly
hair
idiotic
sitting in the same
interns stored
place
a
she
recipe
was
for
when he
homemade
saw
dynamite
Mike.
on the server.
Andrew moved
Never
down
thought
the
I'd
middle
say
aisle
this,
and looked over at the woman as
Maybe
he
you should
went.
try and use it.
Her eyes were shut.
For real?
The
The
newly
flight attendant
constructed
was trying to
wall
shake
near
her
the
awake
entrance
and
is
was
the only
panicking a
shortcut
bit.
to the ambulances.
The young woman began shouting for someone to call for help as she took the old lady's pulse.
So
"I think
us.
she's
The
dead."
newly constructed
She shouted to
wall near
others.
the entrance is
There was
the
no
only
immediate
shortcut to
sign
the
of foul
ambulances.
play.
But I can't get over
Heart
here.
attack?
Oh.
Andrew had to get out of that airport and away from Mike or anyone else before people started asking questions. He ran out of the plane and through the airport, down the escalator to baggage claim. He stood there looking all around him, hoping that the old woman was just at her time of life. But then he saw the police marching into the airport and up the escalator.
Got me messed up. I ain't going out like that.
It didn't look like a heart attack anymore.
Thank you. Yeah, how'd I feel?
His bags popped up and he grabbed them, running out into the rain and past the ambulance and several police cars that had their lights flaring. He hailed a cab and off he went towards his parents' house, hoping that Mike was long gone by now. The ride took a bit longer than he remembered, but they had hit morning traffic. He kept his head low in the back of the cab, still a bit nervous about the whole flight and all that had happened. And then as they got closer to his house, the radio began blaring an alert. Breaking! An elderly woman named withheld until the family is notified has been found dead in their seat on a flight from Los Angeles to London. She was thought to have succumbed to age or illness, but it's found upon investigation that she had a stab wound in her abdomen. There's a man being sought by police for questioning. He had been sitting next to the woman, and also another man, who was also being sought for questioning. Andrew couldn't believe
I
it.
do not know the
Was
password.
that crazy? Arriving at his home, he hurried out of the cab after paying and didn't even accept help to remove the bags.
Did find a
He
key though.
dragged them out and ran down the walkway yelling, "Happy Christmas!" at the cabbie behind him. He knocked on his door nervously, waiting for his mom to open it, wanting to hide inside his house until this whole thing could get
I need to go
sorted.
back and get her.
He wanted to clear this up, but first he wanted to hug his mom. But no one was answering. Mom! Dad!
Which one was you again?
There was still no answer, even as he knocked
Right.
again.
Do you need me?
But then he heard
course I
footsteps
need
coming
you.
towards the door, but when it swung open, standing there, finishing a laugh, was Mike. From behind him came Andrew's mother. "You didn't tell me you met someone." She exclaimed,
What the-
reaching around Andrew and squeezing him tighter.
So y'all respawn up in here.
He could hear his father in the background, also sounding
Nah,
excited
he just
as
came
Christmas
in out of
music played.
coincidence.
Andrew looked into Mike's eyes with a mix of fear and rage. "Hi, baby." Mike followed after his mother, giving Andrew a huge hug. He felt him press something against
Come on,
his
little
side.
computer. Show
"I
us
got
what you
here a
have in
little
your
faster
memory.
than you know. Being you
In a
were on
lab
that
like this,
terrible flight
I'd
over."
try a scientist's name.
Andrew's parents looked puzzled. "Oh, yes. We took different flights, and poor Andrew here ended up on the plane with that poor old
That's
woman
correct.
they had
Hey,
mentioned
man,
on the news a bit
Just get the
ago.
information from the computer,
Mike
okay?
smiled at
No
Andrew's
gaming or
devilishly.
surfing the net.
Oh, I smell the pies.
Boy,
Let
he
me
need
go
to be
ahead and check
quiet.
those for you." Andrew came in slowly as Mike ran to the kitchen. Andrew had no clue what to say to his parents, and he was afraid for their lives.
The end was right.
"You sent us a picture a month ago. Did that end? Are you still seeing him, or are you seeing more than one person?" asked his mother. "What happened on the plane, boy?" "The police are looking to interview someone about a possible suspect," his father chimed in. Andrew dropped his bags and grabbed his mother's arm, looking into her eyes. "I am not seeing more than one person." Andrew nodded, trying to get across that the man in the kitchen wasn't who he said he was. "What's that? Why are you doing that with your head?" His mother wasn't getting it. Andrew decided he had to act before someone got hurt, knowing that Mike was most likely listening. His gut instinct was to head out the front door, hoping his parents would just follow him. As he tried that, breaking glass was heard coming from the kitchen. His father ran ahead before he could stop them, but the glass in the back door was broken out, and there was no sign
The
of
entrance
Mike
wall is our
anywhere.
only hope. We need
Ignoring
explosives to
sirens
blow it up.
and he knew that Mike must have escaped when he heard it. The police questioned Andrew and his parents about Mike. Andrew wasn't the suspect, and he was able to clear up the relationship he did have with Mike, which was non-existent. The police knew that Mike was the killer and figured he couldn't have gone too far, especially being from the country. The police told Andrew's family to lay low and that there would be a police car parked for the day outside of their house. Andrew felt terrible, but his parents were simply happy that it was over and that Mike was gone. Christmas could
No, it
begin,
ain't no
even
bean
though it
now.
was a weird start, and they had their son home safely. That night, Andrew went up with his bags after dinner to his old bedroom. It was the way he had left it before heading to
Okay,
America.
we've got the recipe for nitroglycerin.
Curled up in his favorite football team's
That's good
comforter,
to know.
he tried
Ain't
to
good to hear.
relax after the long flight, lack of sleep, and trauma of the day. What a great deal
Please.
of stuff was on the plane.
I see.
How could something like that happen to him?
Okay.
He started thinking about staying behind in London, not only for fear of who he would be on the plane with on the way home, but also because he realized it was true. He was homesick. Andrew didn't notice that he fell asleep and was startled awake with a scraping noise coming from the closet. He sat up slowly, thinking of
This reinforced glass
Bruh.
protects against dangerous substances. You need a code.
One step.
The power must have gone off.
Fuck, I ain't never going on the hill. I thought we were going on the side.
And it wasn't on now. He swung his legs over the side of the bed and his feet hit the floor. The scratching began again. He called out for his mother, but she didn't answer. He felt like he did in that airplane bathroom.
That's wrong.
Could this be Mike? No. He ran out of the house. Andrew stood up and started towards the closet door. The scratching then stopped.
Mm-hmm.
He began to place his hand around the handle of the closet. This was starting to feel familiar.
So I don't have the
He
password?
didn't want to try and turn the knob like he had in the plane because he thought of how it was shaking and how scary that was. He let it go, hoping that this time he could do something different. This time he backed out of the room, running down the stairs without checking on his parents. He ran out into the street, flagging down the officer in the car. 2 officers followed him back in, searching the house as they went. Luckily, his parents had made it downstairs at this point. And
something was supposed to. Oh, wait, there it is, 1634.
wires that would have taken the power out. Heading into Andrew's room, the police concentrated on the closet door, and they paused, took a breath, and then pulled the door open with flashlights out and tasers drawn. Standing there in the closet was Mike, with a big smile on his face. He held a knife close to his chest.
Can I make any more or no?
Dried blood. The back of the door was covered in scratch marks. As Mike was taken,
Now, where was that hidden at? Come on now.
But they were both famous now. Mike was carted away, and Andrew never left England again. Jess had spent at least the 5 past Christmases basically alone, only having dinner with her parents,
Okay, this is the
spending
computer
the
one you
time
told me
off
to
from
go
work,
to.
drafting her novels. She was reminded each year, however, that she needed to find something. She didn't want to run out of time, and she wasn't getting any younger. Her job
Nah,
had
we
gone
taking you,
remote
bucko.
during the pandemic,
Okay,
too,
things are
which
gonna
made
heat
the
up
entire
now.
year leading up
The
to
newly
Christmas
constructed
lonelier
wall
than
near
ever.
the entrance is the
She
only
already
shortcut
lived
to
in
the
the sticks to
ambulances.
save money, so there wasn't much happening around her house. She was basically trapped inside with little contact
That's going
beyond
on.
her computer. If the woman of her dreams were out there, she'd have to keep waiting or move on alone. Jess was convinced that this pandemic Christmas was going to be her worst yet. The week before Christmas, Jess
won't let
found
that
out
noise.
her mother had to be quarantined. Someone her mother worked with had gotten COVID, and her parents had to take precautions.
Sorry.
They were unwilling to plan a socially distanced Christmas for fear that if something developed,
Stop being a baby.
Jess would get
I got
sick
plenty of
too.
meds. Get off my boy.
So this year there wouldn't even
I
be a
thought I was
dinner.
going to join my ancestors.
Jess was crushed.
My ancestors.
Aside from going to her mailbox,
Flip.
she hadn't been outside
With the
for
gods.
weeks. Her little 2-bedroom rental home was covered in frost by this time of year. She decided she wanted to get out there and feel the stinging air on her face. She
Oh, that's
decided
wrong,
that she'd had
X-rays.
enough.
I've never broken anything.
Hanging up the
Norwegians
phone
are
after the
tough.
call with her mother, Jess got dressed in real clothes and walked outside, throwing on an old, oversized bomber jacket that she'd gotten at Goodwill.
Oh, I'm still looking for the ingredients I
It was
need for the
too big
express.
for her, but she didn't care. It was snowing and about 20 degrees
Do that.
outside, but she was just happy to be out, and she didn't even worry about how cold she might get.
Bruh, if you don't
She
move,
threw on a
bruh,
mask
are you
and
gonna
headed
help
down
Her
me?
the
body
street.
lies here,
She
but
figured
his
she would
soul
just walk
is
the
in
half a
Valhalla.
mile into town and find a bar.
Is that a gun in there? Couldn't see.
People in.
No, that's not a gun.
She was walking along the street,
Move.
turning back and
Move, boy.
feeling
Thank you.
like she was being watched. She figured her paranoia was heightened just from the months of being inside and talked herself out of worrying about it too much. The Christmas lights on the main street of
man's
town
God.
were pathetic, she noticed.
Got 2, I need one more.
They had tried, she thought, as she rounded the corner, still feeling like there was someone right behind her there. She hurried into the second bar she passed. Through the window, she had seen only the bartender and one patron in the entire place. The bartender
I'll
was
get the last
masked
one.
and the patron had on a mask. And there's plenty of space around the back side where she could hide. The door had jingle bells on it which announced her arrival. The bartender and the patron both looked up, surprised that a newbie had walked in.
Be careful.
She wasn't
Even in this
regular at the
antiseptic
town bar.
environment, we're still vulnerable.
Jess ordered herself a beer and headed straight for the bench
Say
at the
less.
back of
That's
the
all you have
bar.
to say.
She stared down at her glass as she set it on the table, feeling a bit out of sorts just being in this public space after
Is that a save point? Oh, yes,
There's
it
still
is.
to the outside, and even more
I like the way how we
surreal
said we all
people
gotta fall
empty
down.
on a
Makes no
Saturday
sense,
night
though.
before Christmas. And that's when the jingle bells jingled again. In walked a beautiful woman, long blonde hair and
Suddenly feel
eyes, dressed like she was going to a party. She bought
Oh, don't
herself the
fastballs?
same
Oh,
beer
yeah.
Jess had just ordered and sat at the bar. She tossed her hair,
See what I
she
just got.
removed her mask and took a sip of her drink. Jess was struck by this beautiful stranger. She wanted to approach the woman and ask her what her name was, but she was still too jittery from no social interactions at all for so many months. The woman at the bar ended up taking notice of Jess and did the work herself, walking over to Jess's table. "Hi, I'm Maria," she said with a huge smile, sitting herself
Ooh,
down
boy.
across from Jess. Jess introduced herself in return and didn't mind at all that Maria sat down without asking. She was just so happy to be
Okay, I got
talking
everything.
to
That's good.
someone, and this was someone she would have wanted to talk to anyway. What started with apprehension on Jess's part became an amazing evening. The two of them talked non-stop, finishing each other's sentences and laughing away. It turned out that Maria was pre-gaming for a Christmas party.
Wait, there's certain order I gotta
At
put
10
them in?
o'clock, she
Or
was
no?
begging Jess to come along to it with her. Jess's gut instinct wanted to say no. She should just get her number and call it a night, though she wasn't even sure if Maria was interested in her that way. Maria stopped her mid-thought and told her that everyone at the party had been tested before, and she herself wouldn't even attend.
Okay, there's it.
This made Jess feel better, but there was
Yeah, there's
still
no order I
a
gotta put
piece
them in.
of her that was nervous. She decided to ignore it and just go to the party with Maria.
Bleach.
She wanted to talk to people and see where the night might lead. She was also about 3 beers into the night and feeling brave for the moon. Before the two stood up, Maria grabbed at Jess's wrist and said, "Hey, let's do a shot before we go." Maria looked directly into Jess's eyes. There was definitely chemistry. For sure, she had to say yes to both the shot and the food.
Oh, I messed up. Came back
Jess
out of
got
that.
up, led by Maria, and headed to the bar to pay her tab while Maria ordered up some whiskey and 2 shot glasses. Jess looked over and smiled at the female bartender who was paying overly close attention to pouring the whiskey in the glasses. It was cute how careful she was being, Jess thought. Jess signed for her tab and headed over to Maria, taking the shot slowly to be flirty, and then they left to head to the party. But within
Yeah,
only a
there's
few
an order,
steps
but
of
I don't
leaving the
know.
bar, Jess could feel the buzz coming on as she rounded the corner towards the main street, and before she knew it,
See?
she blacked out. When Jess finally opened her eyes, everything was still black. It seemed like she had been blindfolded, but instantly recognized the smell of wood and ash. It was a fireplace. She could hear it crackling. Her awareness
Okay.
became clearer, and
So
then
I
she
got right
realized
then.
that her hands had been tied behind her back. She tried not to panic immediately, but it was hard to stay calm as she tried to stifle any crying or yelling out.
Bleach. Okay.
She listened the best she could over her own heavy breathing and
Oh,
tried to
okay.
better
That's right.
understand what was going on. She could hear footsteps from above, like someone was walking around on the upper floor. And then she felt around the floor behind her, and her hands landed on something
And then the
fuzzy.
block eyes.
It
Okay.
was something so familiar that she gasped. It was her own slipper.
Okay.
She'd been
This
back to
one.
her house. She was
Okay.
in her own living room. Just tried to get her head straight and orient herself to where exactly she was in the room when the footsteps began to come down the stairs. What had
It's time to
happened
test out our
between
mixture
Bar
on the
and
new
house?
construction
Yeah,
wall.
okay, that's what it
The
was.
more her brain turned on, the more she felt her body ache.
Dynamite.
She had fallen hard.
Do I got any more dynamite? How much
And then
dynamite
her
do you give me?
hands started
I
to
don't know.
throb. The footsteps reached
That's
the
not the
bottom of the
dynamite.
stairs,
Hold on.
which meant that the person who was walking around was now able to face into the
Oh!
They had to be staring directly at the fireplace, and it just came through. Jess started to
I don't
scream
like
in her
that,
gag
bro.
as the person came closer. Maria's image flashed
Look.
into her head. She remembered everything from the bar, meeting Maria and how lucky she felt that she had met someone on the exact day.
Let
that
me
she
get
had
out of
decided
here
to
before he
go
come
out
to
of her
me.
house. And then she remembered that
Let me get out of here. I ain't trying to meet that. No, sir. I heard how
Jess
you was
realized
yelling.
that
Matter of
she'd never
fact,
seen Maria
Surge.
pick her
Yeet.
She must have
Even though
both
this thing
friends,
won't do
not
nothing.
knowing which one Jess would pick up. She was smart. And then next Jess heard Maria's voice. We will remove your dad, but if you stay,
got the diamond buckle.
The newly constructed wall near the entrance is the only shortcut to
and then
the
suddenly
ambulance.
from a different direction, Maria's voice, someone
He
grabbed
must be
onto
talking about
Jess's
this one.
shoulders and pulled her onto her back, yanking
You
her
call her
back.
name all you might as well. You can even have
She was in a
her.
hurry, all right. In her own house. There were only 2 guests that Jess
You said the
could see.
newly wall.
Maria and a large...
Do I need to charge? That's her good, no?
Grunting as he did away with Jess's gag, too. And on the couch were 2
He said near the entrance.
to one another. One of them wearing an
You
ugly
can't go back
Christmas
out
sweater.
there.
Jess began to shriek, but the man quickly shoved his hand over her mouth. And then a smell began to overcome Jess's nostrils now that her mouth was restricted. Someone was cooking.
Okay, so it's not
The
in. It's
man
not out
let go
there.
of Jess's mouth and she gasped out a cry. He got Maria got close to Jess's face. I told you not to cry. I told you. My brother's going to escort you to the kitchen. We need to have dinner. We need to celebrate the holiday together.
Oh, right. I got to be please. Let me 1, 2, 3. Open it up.
Maria looked deranged as she said these
Flash
words,
boys.
and she smiled. Maria's brother lifted Jess from the ground and
Oh, I
dragged
got
her
a.
feet
Oh, I
over
got a
her
flare
head as
ball.
he went
Okay,
into
flare
the
gun. That's
kitchen.
nice.
He turned down the hall, headed to the kitchen towards the back of the house with Jess yelling and trying to kick the whole way. In the kitchen, there was a third person standing over 2 large
Am I supposed to?
boiling
No, I don't think I'm supposed to use it or not.
The
But
table
hold on.
was
Did
set
this?
with
Oh,
festive
that
plates, and there
got
was a
it
big
there.
green present in the center, topped with a red bow.
Got another new weapon. That's good
Her
to
small
know. Good
tree
to
was
have.
in the corner with
Now,
extra
where
things
on
added
the earth am I supposed to use this?
The person at the stove was a skinny creature. His skin was pale, blotchy, with red and purple marks. He opened the lid to one of the pots and stirred it up. A horrible stench of flesh came wafting from the pot. A chicken.
It'd be
Jess
nice if
hoped.
I knew where exactly
Had
to
to be
use
a
it.
chicken. Overhearing
It's
the
talking about
conversation,
near
she
the
could gather
entrance.
some of what was going on.
Which entrance?
It sounded like Maria was sent out to
There's
follow
only one
any
entrance. Do you want me to
person's
throw it at
house
that?
to wherever
Hold on.
the person was going. All with the intentions of luring them back by drugging them and tying them up. They had enough time to decorate Jess's living room with more tinsel and garland
Oh,
and
yes,
prepare
yeah.
her
The
kitchen
newly
for a meal.
constructed wall near the
This was
entrance
something
is the only shortcut to the
obviously
ambulance.
used to doing. And it didn't
Newly
seem like
constructed
just
wall.
hollow.
So I'm looking for a new piece of wall.
Jess was struck with terror as the vision of the skeletons on the couch
This it?
came back to her.
Oh,
Who were these people? Jess listened as
Oh.
the siblings complained
Well,
about how
dang.
long it had been since their last meal, and how they hadn't seen people alone in the
entrance walls
street
are
for
only
such a
hope.
long time.
We need
because of
explosives
COVID.
to blow it up.
what the?
I'm keeping the rest
It was in the wrong
just
place
in case.
at the wrong time. And they were talking about
Oh,
hunting
thank God. I
out
didn't mess up.
people.
But wait. Oh, come on, out of it. Come on now.
To turn. And it was when all of this dawned on her that the rope
The storage
hanging in her
area.
hands
The professor
came
was
loose.
right. Ambulance parking lot
Maria's
can't be
brother
far
had
away.
accidentally loosened the knots and were now unraveling
Okay.
as she struggled against them in the chair. She didn't want them to know that she now had a way to get free.
One jump and we done. Can we get back up here? Yes, we
Looking
can.
towards her back door, waiting for the perfect moment to make a run for it. I'm starving. We haven't had a decent meal in months, the chef said. Jess gathered it was another sibling, possibly. She felt like she was in some sort of a fever dream.
Is he really
So,
that
set the
strong,
table.
bruh?
It's a Christmas party, and we can save this one here for New Year's Day. The big, menacing, funky man pointed and laughed at Jess.
Yeet!
The chef took his brother's orders and began to fill the
And there's
plates.
a save right over there, too.
Definitely meat, but it didn't look like chicken. Jess's eyes now slid down to the gift on the table, and coming out from underneath the present
Long
was
time.
something
Look
long
like a
and
koala
black.
from where I'm standing. Come a little
It was a
closer and I'll
huge,
show you what a
scraggly
koala can
strand
drop
of
in your
hair.
stupid head.
Once she figured out what was under the centerpiece, she knew she had to act before it was too late. Without thinking, Jess jumped up from her chair, grabbed the fork, and stabbed it into the man's hand. He let out a yell. Maria leapt up to attack, but Jess backhanded her with enough force to send her into the fridge. Maria hit the back of her head and fell to the ground. The chef, holding the boiling pot, turned away from plating everything, but before he could figure out what to do, Jess ran past the screaming man at the table and shoved the
Okay, I feel like you're gonna fall.
the chef and burned him. The pain must have been excruciating because the scream he let out was the worst she had heard that whole night. Jess threw open her yard door quicker than she ever had.
Oh my Lord.
The screaming must have woken the neighbors on either side of her because they were now outside.
Man, it's nothing. Hold on, man.
It's our only chance to
Jess
get
was
on
hoping that the
campus.
police would
They're
come
behind this
soon.
warehouse.
The yelling continued inside the house, but Maria must have been up by now. She could hear
It's my bad. You should be dead, though.
Suddenly,
That's gonna help us
was
pull out.
running inside, blaring Christmas carols to drown out the noise. Jess turned herself around and
We need to
ran
get up.
out of her house, but as she entered the darkest area by the garbage bins, a man popped out and threw his arms around her. He was large and imposing, baring his teeth with a grin. In fact, his teeth and the whites of his eyes were all she could see. Before she could scream, Jess was knocked out again. Hours later, Jess found herself.
Okay, I need to move that.
Her
What
back.
this time?
She wasn't tied up this time, but she was a lot more beaten up than before. She was now gagged again, and her head was pounding harder than ever. She also realized that she couldn't move very much. Her body was sore as hell. Before long, she heard heavy footsteps coming up the stairs.
Okay, I'm gonna need Bucko over here too.
Marie? The bathroom door swung open, and in came the big burly brother who had dragged her to the kitchen. He still had a fork in his hand, but now he was also holding a butcher knife in the other hand. Jess closed her eyes and screamed at the top of her lungs. The following week, after hearing nothing from their daughter, Jess's parents decided they had to break quarantine and go to her house. They made the hour-long drive and pulled into her driveway. Luckily, nothing seemed out of place.
Okay.
Well, not exactly.
Why are you trying to get ahead of me?
No one had shoveled the walkway, and there were no footprints in the snow leading to the mailbox and back. They got out of their car and trudged their way through the snow and up to her porch. Her front door was unlocked, but when they walked in, there was no sign of any violence or break-in. The tacky decorations were still up, but the kitchen was spotless. So was the bathroom. Both rooms looked like they hadn't been used in months, they were so clean. Jess's parents called the police and filed a report that day. The police showed up and scoured the property.
No, do not eat like that.
No evidence.
We need to
No
find a way
Jess.
of reaching that door.
It was as if Jess
gotta
had
lead
just
to the ambulances.
disappeared into thin air. The police officer asked if the parents would come with him to the station to give a bit more information that might lead him to finding Jess. Her parents were distraught, but they obliged and cried as they climbed into the
I hear that loud noise. Ain't nobody trying to fall for that.
In the driver's seat
I don't know if I
was
am.
a large, burly man in a uniform, wearing a bomber jacket, with his right hand bandaged up. As for Jess, the police kept the case open until it went cold. Jess was never found. Meg hated Christmas shopping. It was her least favorite thing to do at the holidays because she felt like she was so bad at giving gifts. But really deep down, it was her ego and how much she hated receiving bad gifts, or at least things that she didn't think were good enough. It was never about the spirit of Christmas or anything like that. She was just in it for the gifts and for eating other people's food, and then she was back to being self-absorbed.
Oh, okay. I see it
She
now.
decided to write out
I see it now.
was always more her thing because she knew she could buy something bad and no one would even know it. And she would already be expecting something after anybody.
Are you really?
There was no surprise there.
Alright.
Sadly, there was no Red Elephant party because this year. This year's family gathering was all she had to look forward to, and for that, she had to buy actual gifts. She tried to even talk her parents out of needing a gift from her because she was living at home and doing things there anyway for them, but she couldn't. They were offended and gave her a budget instead. Even with the money she could set aside and was ready to spend, she put it off so much that by the time she
I ain't trying to drop down the second time. Lucky the first time. Yeet!
she made it there, lighted it opened at 10 a.m., ready to be in and out. Grabbing her reusable bags from the back of the car, she put her coats in their place.
Ambulances! It's our only chance to get off campus. They're behind this warehouse.
She locked her car and headed for the entrance, blending in with the crowd of people all rushing in for last-minute shopping just like her. 2 stores into the shopping and she was already a mess, sweating and aggressively tossing her bags to the ground. All she wanted to do was go back home, but she still had a few nieces and nephews to buy for. She took a breath and sipped on the bottle of water she had bought, and then into the corner of her eye she saw a handsome
You ain't climbing that.
He was all alone. He entered the video game store. She figured that she'd follow him in, and that it would be a good place to find something for her nephews and for herself. As she perused the aisles 3 or 4 times, trying not to look obvious, it was already clear to the handsome stranger that she was watching him.
Let's keep on.
To her surprise, he walked up to her while she pretended she didn't see him coming. Come here often? He asked with a smile, obviously joking.
There's something up there.
She stammered out some laughter and glow and began the process of flirting back, completely forgetting about her nephew's gifts. After some casual pleasantries, she went on to the blue-eyed stranger about her bad luck with gifts, how she wasn't looking forward to being all jolly. He didn't look disgusted at her negativity, but he certainly must be perfect. And then she squeezed in the biggest lie that she loved video games. She was being so hoping to get his attention, but most of the time he didn't flicker on the subject. He didn't seem fazed by her nervous talking, and he smiled and conversed quite easily.
Wait, was I supposed to?
Finally, he asked her if she was hungry and would she want to go to the food court with him. She agreed, and off they went. The guy even offered to carry a bag or 2 at first. Mark, he said to her as they entered the store. Meg introduced herself, realizing she'd been going on without actually saying her name or asking his. She got so silly, but shook it off as they walked to the escalator and loaded up some food. They decided on some small Chinese food and sat talking with the photo man. Meg had forgotten that she was in that mall and she was distracted trying to score on Mark.
I'm trying to find a way.
That anyone was seeing that she even got a man at the table at all. She was so bad. But Mark seemed to make them up and was certainly agreeable with everything she was saying. She was agreeable, actually, but she didn't notice because she was just so busy talking. Being distracted by him was also helping her avoid the inevitable shopping that she had to do, so...
Whoa, I'm stuck.
When they finished, she asked him for his number. He laughed it off a little bit and twinkled later that he didn't have his cell phone. He hoped that she would have the lovely rest of her day. His gestures made it look like he was ready to walk away for good, just like that. Meg was stunned. What did he mean he was that way? Everyone had a cell phone, she thought. She got a bit of an attitude with him in their goodbye, and his mood completely changed. Even his face changed. I don't have a cell phone for you to call because you're a terrible person. This was just entertainment when I realized what this interaction meant to you. It means nothing. His eyes went from bright blue to almost black as he got closer to her face. She was shocked and couldn't move on his side. His voice dropped low. You aren't as important as you think you are. You could be killing what you were. His face and words were so unsettling. Meg felt tears go up in her eyes. She turned around and stalked off in the other direction, almost forgetting the bag behind. She didn't get far and had to come back to him, looking foolish. He was still standing there, flipping the board while she picked up the bag. What is this joke, Meg thought, convincing herself that he was just a loser. She was wrapped up in all that conversation.
I don't know where to go.
Sure, it was weird, quickly he switched personalities. But she decided to just leave it as he was.
So you got you up there hanging out.
She was on her way to run. Before she knew it, she had herself out the door of the mall and back into the parking lot, forgetting completely about everyone else she had to buy for. Arriving in the car, Meg began to feel her stride as she
Ambulances!
approached.
It's our only chance to get
And
off
then she
campus.
noticed her
They're
window
behind this
was
warehouse.
what had left the ground.
I'm trying to do that.
Passenger side, she grabbed her license and registration before laying on the seat, but her coat was gone. She threw her bags through the broken passenger side window and rested her hands on her hips. She first wondered if it could be the heat from the wall, but decided it couldn't be from up the camera, and how could he have even known which car was hers? She decided that she was
I am literally trying to notice my car with people. Okay, that's what it is.
She felt like someone must have been jealous of her car, or maybe her coat. It was all a dumb situation, and she didn't even know if calling the police was worth it. Meg didn't even bother brushing off the glass from the mirror at the driver's seat. She did make sure she didn't cut herself by using one of the gifts she just got and brush it off onto the floor. She didn't even bother brushing it out into the pavement. She thought angrily as she turned on the car, realizing as she snapped in her seatbelt that she forgot to buy wrapping paper. Witness, here I am. She shouted to herself in the car, hitting the steering wheel. She decided she'd go call the car insurance company, put plastic over the broken window, and push off in the next day. She wanted to take a nap more than anything at that time. She pulled out of her Christmas start, narrowly avoiding a flat tire, and headed back home, frustrated beyond words. She shivered as she waited for Pete to pick her up the car. She really needed it now, with no coat cleaning the windows. As she turned onto her street, Meg came to leave, but she didn't allow herself to leave the house behind. Creepy moon died, gifts she had to buy, thieves breaking into her car and missing winter coat. She just wanted to crawl under her blanket, but she had no doubts until she realized she could do it. Once home, the creepy guy left her
Click on every dime, bro.
He had nothing but a flip every day, and now it was time to handle the situation in her car. She parked in the driveway of the house that she shared with her parents. The neighbors came out to see what happened. She shut the window and looked and said, "My car was broken into. I was not drinking at 10 in the morning. Merry Christmas." She's nasty. Slamming the car door and leaving the
Alright, maybe by...
She marched inside to call the insurance company.
I'm not gonna let go. I'm gonna let go, I die.
We need to find a way of reaching that door.
Bro, you don't think I don't know that? You can stop telling me that. I know we gotta reach the bloody door. Do I got a door grenade? Or no? And I gotta leave out of here. That's what I'm gonna do.
The person on the other end of the phone was now fighting back and asking Meg to please calm down, but then realized that Meg had stopped talking completely. The woman on the other end said hello.
Let's try to exit because that ain't working. Actually, no, let's go back and talk to him. Maybe he got something.
How did the coach get out of the room from the wall? And that's when she heard a loud bang come from upstairs. She jumped immediately.
The newly constructed wall near the entrance is the only shortcut to the entrance.
Someone had broken in.
I'm about to need one of y'all.
Broken into her
Okay,
house.
I'm coming with you.
Yeah.
She felt like she was going to break. Meg quickly made her way out the front door, out into the walkway. She started yelling, "Excuse me," to the neighbors that had come out earlier before it ignored her. No one cared about what she needed now. She still wasn't getting it as she screamed, "Screw you!" at the neighbors.
Yeah, it happened. There was something in here, but it didn't happen.
She then turned back to her house, afraid to go inside, looking up at the windows and wanting to look along the sides of the house.
Do I got a door grenade at you or something? That would have seemed like I gotta do.
She knew they were at work, but I hoped they wouldn't answer. When they didn't, she decided to call the police. Calling 911, she got an operator.
I like how you're telling me I gotta go up.
About her car and the house. The operator had no idea what she needed and kept asking for the address.
I can't get up there, big fella.
Gave it to her. She was told that there would be a delay from the police and should just stay outside. Meg yelled about the police officers not showing up and how horrible it was that they were so busy this time of year, as if the operator's fault or something. She She saw her thank you and then crossing the beach and letting her mother drive the sky. Meg stuck it out about 5 minutes before realizing how cold she was.
Did you say get behind the window?
She was too afraid to go back inside the house. The coat was right there on the couch within arm's reach of the front door, but she kept questioning whether or not it was a good idea to try and get it. And then she toyed with the idea that the person might not be in the house anymore. She thought about this just long enough to gain a little bit of confidence. She was so uncomfortable outside in the cold that she had to take a chance to get in the house. Looking up at her brightly decorated door at pine rates down on her face, she took a deep breath and reached for the knob. Very quietly, she spun the door knob in her hand and punched the door open. That's when she heard the jingle bells that were hanging on the inside of the door. If anybody was inside, they knew she was back there. Meg quickly reached out for her coat, but footsteps came barreling
There's a door up there,
blood
but you have to be a monkey to climb up to it.
She was shocked to recognize it was the man from the Mark. Mark, the new one. He threw her against the floor.
There's a door up there and there's a monkey climbing up there too.
She wailed and
I don't try climbing up there. Oh, she can't climb.
You're a really horrible person, you know that. Mark said, still over her. She didn't see a weapon right away, but she couldn't be sure he wouldn't help them. She decided to just stay put, shaking with tear streams on her face. Do you know that? He screamed. She grew heavier and heavier now, looking around her and then back at him, confused. Do I know you? She managed to say. Mark leaned in with those same black eyes and that same
There's a
scary
door
look.
up
No,
there, but you
I
gotta
know
be a
you.
monkey to
I
climb
know
up there
what
to
kind of
it.
person you are. You don't care about family
No,
or
big
friends
fella.
anyway.
No.
You only care
Wait.
about yourself. He grabbed her wrist and dragged her through the living room and then up the stairs while she kicked and
Can I
screamed.
use the walls? Hold on. No. What? I think I can use the walls.
You need a lesson. People like you don't deserve a day like this.
Let me go back and get them again.
She was here. He was pulled her into the bathroom. She went onto the door frame, managing to break the briskly and hold on to either
I'm gonna go
side
back
of the
and
door.
get him.
The hallway led right down the stairs and out the front door, and she could throw herself down the stairs at any point without staying alive.
I'm ready for
She
a
was too
fight.
strong, and instead Meg was swallowed up by the bathroom with the door slamming shut.
We need to find a way of reaching that door again. There's gotta be anyways.
What did I don't know that? You stay up here.
And the coat was still nicely folded on the couch. The living room was completely clean, and there didn't appear to be any struggle anywhere. The stocking was even back in the fireplace, and nothing seemed out of place except police. Meg's parents showed up and asked the neighbors if they had seen anything, and knew why no one had called the police. They answered the door, but said that they had seen nothing.
You looking up. Why?
No one was ever found in the house. Mark and Meg remain missing to this day. The worst part is, no one seems to care. The boy down the street from Amy's apartment had a big Christmas party every year, right on Christmas Day. It was a way for those who were far from home or
I'm gonna try to
alone
let go, bro.
celebrate with people they knew and
Okay.
Amy was part of this group since she had moved several states away from her family to
Ooh,
start
that was aggravating me.
opportunity. In fact, the job was so new that she couldn't afford the holiday flight home. She settled on going to the bar party instead, knowing that she'd be around other people that she knew and loved. On the morning of Christmas,
Oh,
she
sure,
slept in a
aggravating me
bit.
because I don't know what the hell.
She worked extra
Okay.
late the night before to make sure her next few days off could be spent with both celebration and sleep. And then at around 2 o'clock in the afternoon, she got a phone call from her friend Jen letting her know when she would be showing up at the bar. The two chatted a bit about neighborhood gossip and then about Jen bringing her new date. Amy felt a little jealous not having a date for Christmas, but she was happy for Jen. Jen had seen this guy a few times so far, and it was moving along pretty fast. So much so that Christmas was the next big step for Jen. Amy held off on her jokes and her pouting and just smiled as Jen gloated. Amy would find Mr. Right eventually, she thought. After hanging up her phone, she went about her day, drinking some more coffee, doing her edits on her articles for work. She called her family on video call to say Merry Christmas to everyone. And while she was on the phone, her little sister grabbed the phone from her mother's hand. Amy, who's the boyfriend? She shouted into the phone. What? She asked what her sister meant by that. I saw a guy walking behind you just now. And we looked at the camera. I saw him.
All you need to do is stay
Emma paused and slowly turned and looked behind her. There was nobody there. She hadn't even heard her name. You must be seeing things because I am very single. But thanks for putting it out there into the universe for me. Amy was smiling, but her little sister was confused, and then the phone was taken back by her mother and the conversation wrapped up.
I'm gonna say it's on radio.
Oh,
I can't say?
But she still searched the apartment when she went to the phone. She found nothing. No sign of a guy anywhere in the house, or any sort of break-in. At 9 o'clock, after 2 hours of shower, hair, and makeup, she threw on her red dress and black clay fur coat. Heading out the door, she turned the knob, but didn't need to.
Better not leave that home.
That was weird. The front door had been open all day, she realized. She felt like an idiot. Good job protecting yourself living alone, Amy. The bar was walking distance, which made getting home afterwards much safer than navigating trains at 2 in the morning. She headed over to the bar and stopped outside for cigarettes before going in, greeting people she knew as they arrived. She knew a lot of the patrons. And then soon from far off, she could see Jen walking alone from the train station.
Wow.
She thought. Jen approached Amy with a sad face. He isn't coming, she sighed, lighting her own cigarette. Amy could tell Jen wanted to cry, but wasn't letting herself.
Are you serious? Get your behind there, man.
Why?
Come real quick.
Apparently he got called into work, and he worked at a hospital, but Jen didn't bother.
You need to find a way to
She felt
door
his
again.
excuse didn't sound
God, the
genuine.
ambulances.
She felt like he was getting cold feet about the relationship.
We're both up here, right? Yeah.
Anyway, the guy's name is Christian, and he seemed nice enough.
So I gotta, okay, that's some bull, but okay.
Whatever the case, Amy wanted to make sure Jen had a good night, so they finished smoking and headed inside to the party. The bar was pretty crowded, considering it was Christmas Day. Apparently a lot of Trinidad lived in the area. The two women sat in the back in a booth and settled in for the evening. A few people made their way over for hugs.
Who the heck is that watching me from above? Oh, yo, I'm good. Ooh. Really, bro? Yo, don't hit him, he a preacher. Bruh, really? I would do that. Wrong, buddy. Come on. Ah.
She saw all the people she knew watching their own conversation. No one was on their phone, and no one stuck out as somebody strange or new.
Okay, what else I got?
I was outside watching you, and I took
Dynamite?
you were standing alone under the mistletoe.
Why not?
And I started to panic a little as the
With
crowd
that shotgun?
And then your friend showed
I'm
up.
give her that crossbow.
And you got me off the Jen instantly.
And let her have that chainsaw.
I was hoping she would give you a little kiss. Amy's thoughts and felt nauseous and offended. She's being watched, and to make it even worse, the guy was mean. Amy saw Jen's phone and put his hand face down on the table.
Play with that.
She didn't want Jen to know about the story.
Oh!
Whoever it was, terrible thing to say. You look like you friends.
Yo, you ain't gotta kill her.
Maybe the ghost of Christmas past. Jen giggled as she placed Amy's ear in front of her. I need another cigarette. Amy responded. Amy to find out if her friend was texting her was pregnant. Maybe she could find him and get the bartender to choose the number. All she knew for sure was...
What you mean by that?
She honestly thought Violet was even
You became a monster. Eat that, boy. Okay, hold on. Is she really not gonna fight? When did she use up the crossbow shells, bro? I ain't scared, boy. Are you gonna help me fight this man? Oh, I guess she just stood there. Okay, you got a right to hold your side of your mouth, but she ain't got no right to be hugging him. I would have been screaming, girl. That would have. I would have been screaming if that had pierced me, bro. He's already got a hole in him. Uh-oh. Why didn't you run him over? You should have ran him over. Y'all could have ran him over. Well, I gotta get it there just when you thought it was over. Nah, it ain't over. It's just a sweet ending, not an ending. Yeah, don't talk to me. And when did she shoot the crossbows? When? I didn't see her shoot one arrow. She was so strong and beautiful. She was caressing her face and playing and playing. Tried to cower away from her, but it only made her laugh. You will have a chance to run later. I've been staying in this building. Hopefully they'll be alright without me. Nice, right? I got some business to take care of. If we want to put our injured giver we'll have to clean out the parasite. Tears were streaming down his face, and all she wanted to do was scream. Christian seemed to enjoy watching her get upset. He kept telling her to pick herself up. He told her that Mark's friend wanted to be different. He admitted that he had been in her apartment to check and make sure that there were no other men in her life. Perhaps when it dawned on Amy, it's actually her sister saw sneaking around behind her. Christian untied her legs and stood her up, but left her arms bound and a gag in her mouth. I've been working on this plan for a while, and you are the perfect specimen. He spun her around to face the doorway into the next room. You are going to start in there. I'm trying to do it up, but okay. I will give you a head start. I can't promise you that you'll make it out. And I will try not to kill you when I catch you. He shoved her forward into the next room and plugged in another set of Christmas lights. The room was huge and filled with things she had to try to avoid, like spikes made from wooden planks and big mannequins. Amy pleaded for her life with her eyes, but Christian just kept laughing. He turned from her and disappeared into another room. She looked around for any way out, but realized her only choice was to go through whatever obstacles were to her path. There were flags and broken Christmas lights and decor mixed in with dangerous weapons and just all over the ground or sticking up from the walls. Right under everything. Go up there. Give you a boost, give me that water bottle. Take, obviously. That's funny. Amy had to get out and back across the street to the bar. That's all she could think about. She was afraid, though, that if she ran to the window to signal for help, it's going to do more to help us hold out. So she played around. She got through the first room slowly, given it's going to be the savior. But that's when she heard a chainsaw ready behind her. Come to help us hold out. She started running as her hands struggled behind her for any way to loosen her binding. In the next room, there was a broken mirror with shards of it hanging from the ceiling.
As she ran past, she cut her face,
You
but
think?
noticed that one of the shells
I'm gonna save it and no Oscar in here. I posted fixed up before I started it.
She twisted it around and gave it music.
Whoa, that was unsurprising.
Into the doorway, her hands were
Secure, hold on now.
Christmas carols were
I'm glad I'm supposed to make this place secure.
holding the chainsaw above her head and running straight at her, ignoring the mirror pieces slashing at her face. Amy kept running through every painful obstacle, falling a few times. Her dress was now torn and there was blood all over her, but now she could scream for help. Out one of the window holes, she could see the bouncer across the street talking to Jenny and the police officer, talking about Amy and where she was gone. Amy screamed out the window and the screams bounced off the bar building and echoed through the street. The bouncer, the officers, and Jen all ran
girl.
the street towards the abandoned construction site. As they got closer, they heard the music, saw the light, and heard the chainsaw over Amy's scream. Running in with his gun drawn, the police officer headed up the stairs. Amy's
She can't move it.
and fell at his feet crying. Christian running far behind, but the officer
Mr.
knew
Muscle, you need that job, girl.
The bouncer retrieved Amy, brought her